Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Here is the high banks of Talladega Superspeedway. Play host to the next playoff race for BackFire Sim Racing. I'm Seth Cole, alongside of Matthew Rodriguez. And Matt, we've got nearly 30 drivers, about 30 plus drivers, I do believe, ready to take the green flag here tonight with a playoff situation. And we always know how the super speedways always tend to play their part into who might be one of those lucky drivers to advance into the Final Four.
Absolutely. And it really comes down to, hey, this is technically now the second playoff race of the season. And you still got about two more races before that big cutoff where it's the Final Four, really battle for it. So this is really your kind of chance to vie your way in. But with it being Talladega, that throws an extra kind of wrench into things.
It does indeed, as we're getting ready here tonight for the Splash and Go 250 at Talladega Superspeedway. And, with you mentioning the fact that this is now the second race coming off of the first race at Chicagoland, we've already talked about the fact that this is not a win and you're into the Final Four situation. At the end of 4 races, 16 drivers are just going to get whittled down to 4. So, it's not kind of that you can treat Talladega really as one of those wild card races of if I have a bad day, then I can use the next 2 races to come back. You really need to use Talladega as a springboard.
This can really set your momentum for the final rounds where, hey, maybe you're not too great at Iowa coming up. Maybe you're not too great at, obviously no one's really wanting to be in that, game 7 moment where you're kind of your whole season's on the line here. So, if you can get a win at Talladega, just get yourself up in points. All you have to do is damage control for the next 2 races. You're golden. If you have a bad day at Talladega, well, you've really got some work to do in the next 2 weeks.
Well, these drivers getting ready to strap in and take to this 2.66 mile super speedway. But before we get to that, let's get to our pre-race ceremonies and begin things with tonight's invocation, courtesy of Pastor Zach Woods.
Let's pray. Almighty God, I thank you for technology like iRacing that exists, that connects so many different people from so many different walks of life. And Lord, we just pray tonight that we have a good race and that our conversations are fruitful and beneficial unto you. Lord, it's such an honor to live in a time such as this where we get to do this every Friday night. And we just thank you for the technology tonight to connect and to race. We thank you and we praise the work of Jesus Christ. Amen.
And as we enter into Memorial Day weekend, let's now honor America with the singing of tonight's national anthem, courtesy of Raina Osby.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, for so gallantly streaming.
"94 laps await these drivers here tonight at Talladega Superspeedway. Drivers have just concluded their qualifying efforts. Looks like officially 30 drivers will take the green flag here tonight. And DJ Daniel, 3-time winner this season, will start on the pole. based off of what we mentioned pre-race here, Matt, about the fact this is going to be the second playoff race coming off Chicagoland, a playoff contender is yet to go to victory lane in a playoff race. Does that change here tonight at Dega?
I don't know if I'd be counting my chickens here to say, hey, there's going to be a playoff driver to go in. I think it's really more about who you know than what you know here. You've got to kind of find some fast friends.
Well, DJ Daniel will line up alongside of another playoff contender. That's going to be Kyle Gartner in the 49. Row 2 is where we're going to find our first non-playoff contender in Jeffrey Vickery. Keep your eyes, as you mentioned there, those non-playoff contenders, they want to win here just as much as the playoff drivers. Matthew Robinson, the other 3-time winner, lines up on the outside of row 2. And you got Chris Papa, Bobby Anderson. They're going to be in row 3. The rest of the top 10 completed by J.R. Miller, Jeremy Richmond in row 4. And row 5 with Christopher Lawrence, who, don't forget, has a super speedway win in the regular season finale at Daytona under his belt alongside of T.J. Roberts. As we look at the rest of the field here today, one thing that's interesting that you touched on here, Matt, before we even came on the air, were the weather conditions and the track conditions these drivers are going to have to deal with here today.
Absolutely. I mean, just looking at the weather here, obviously the whole ambient temperature of about 80 degrees, that's normal for Talladega here. But what really catches my attention is the track temp at 130 and the low humidity, low humidity. Obviously, the humidity being at 1%, you're going to be getting full power out of these engines. There's no kind of humidity, no fog. It's really just kind of running these things down. So we're going to be going at max speed. But obviously, with the track temp being at 130, it's also a little bit of a concern. So that's obviously a little bit of a hot, slick condition. I wouldn't be too surprised to see these cars get a little bit tail happy.
Now, with that being said, what do we see in terms of strategies from these drivers? Because I know that every driver comes in with a different mentality. Those that qualify at the front, they want to stay at the front. Those that are towards the back, sometimes they just feel safer running back there, at least in the early stages. But those guys in the middle, they got a choice. Do I make the charge to the front, or do I drop to the back?
I wouldn't want to be in the middle of the pack, I'll be perfectly honest. But you kind of have to analyze what you want to do here. If you've got a good group of guys who are willing to stay with you, it's worth it to drop back here a little bit, but don't get separated from the pack. It's not like Daytona where you have the ability to kind of get separated from the pack, and if you get everyone kind of nose tail together, you can catch right back up. At Talladega, even if you do that, there's a good chance that you will lose the front pack completely. And, hey, there's always a risk of they will go caution free.
And if that is the case, we could see pit road come into play here today. These drivers will be out there upwards of over 180, maybe even topping over 190 miles per hour in the draft. Have to get that thing down to 55 miles per hour when you hit that commitment line for the entrance of pit road. These drivers going to be getting set for, as we said, 94 laps of racing. That'd be the half distance of a NASCAR Cup race. And they do have one faster pair to fall back on should they encounter trouble early. But I think that every single driver in the field, they're hoping that they don't have to use that at least until the second half of this race at the latest.
I mean, the idea is, again, you have to have one kind of at the end of the race. But you know that if you use it in the first 5-10 laps, you've really got to play conservative. You're going to be hanging back in the back of the pack because you just don't want to risk it.
And of course here as well, we saw this in the season opener at Daytona. We saw it in the regular season finale at Daytona, the only super speedway up to this point we've been to. But in all honesty, based off the racing we've seen at the speedways and the short tracks, this is really the only time that teammates are going to get the opportunity to really work together. We've seen week after week all the teammates race against each other for a position as if they weren't aligned with each other in any way, shape, or form. And so we'll see if we end up having some alliances with the teammates here, or if they're still going to try and maybe find some other fast friends. Interesting to watch the strategy that happens here. We call it a chess match at over 180 miles per hour when we come to these super speedways. As DJ Daniel waiting for that iRacing pace car to make the left-hand turn to pit road. It will do so. 30 drivers set to come down and take the green flag. 30 will start. How many will finish? And don't forget, folks, Talladega has the start-finish line down between the tri-oval and turn 1. That extra 100, 200 feet could be the difference maker by the end of the night.
Now, Seth, you got to remember, a lot of these drivers have some spotters here this week, obviously trying to lighten the load on them a little bit. Think any deals are going to be struck?
No, I think there's going to be a lot of wheeling and dealing. Those spotters up there are going to have to put on their diplomatic suits as the Splash and Go Graphics 250 is underway.
Noticing a little bit of almost kind of hesitation from the bottom of the pack. Looks like round Probably the 25 of Zachary Kitzler. Or actually, my apologies. Even further back from that, it would be about the 90 of Santiago. He just did not get going on that start.
And we're already possibly pushing 3 wide there. That was Vickery moving up to the middle line. Kyle Gartner going to let him in, so the 21 will now lead the top side against DJ Daniel on the inside line, who's got Chris Papa in tow.
And you got to think some of these guys, obviously, they've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They want to end up going out and winning. But you got to think for some of the guys who maybe they don't have that great of runs at, again, tracks like Iowa or some of the races here with system, we're kind of seeing this race as, hey, this is my equalizer. This is where I can kind of sneak in, get a win, whether I'm in the chase or if I'm not.
And again, remember, as we said too, all the points as far as the playoffs right now are coming based off of Chicagoland. At the conclusion of that race, all 16 drivers were only separated by 18 points. And we know that at a track like Talladega, as we're already wrecking Chris Papa on the apron, and that's going to be Lawrence up into the traffic, and the big one has struck out of turn 2 on lap 2.
I was about to bring up a point of, I wonder how much give and take there's going to be that early in the race. And I think that may have answered my question already.
They were almost 3 wide there. I think the 13 of Chris Papa may have drifted up the track. He left the door open. I'm not sure who it was that stuck his nose in there, but the contact was made. And I think you had just as much the initial contact as follow-up contact with drivers wondering if the 13 was going to spin. Both of the Catos looked like they were involved. Gene and James. Corey Saucier in the 24 is back here.
I'm thinking I'm seeing what happened here. Obviously, with iRacing's new aero model, that's kind of put a bigger emphasis on super speedway racing and how much aerodynamics really play into the race. It looks like the 21 of Jeffrey Vickery, if you're watching the replay, it really looks like he kind of got his left front right on the right rear of that 13 of Chris Papa, just took the air off the spoiler, slowed him down from it looks like 189 to about 180, and right then and there, the 78 of J.R. Miller was right there and just hooked him on around.
Yeah, you saw exactly what you described right there. 13 was already snapping around before the 78 was even there. But I almost wonder, too, if the combination of the 21 taking the air off the right rear and the 78 then coming up alongside of the left rear taking the air off there, if Chris Papa was just along for the ride.
I think the moment that you kind of had your left rear anywhere near nose, that was kind of a ride along moment. I didn't notice the biggest problem about Talladega isn't really the wrecks itself. It's guys behind trying to avoid the wreck. If you look back, I didn't know if you noticed, but James Cato actually got turned by, it looks like, the 25 when he was trying to slow down, but the 25 was getting run over by the 5 of Hubco. So it just shows you that so much stack up can occur here where even if you avoid the main incident, you could be involved in so many of these smaller.
You saw right there, the 25 of Kinsler come flying in after that contact from behind. We were on board there with the 9 of Christopher Lawrence, who the last time out of Super Speedway took the checkered flag at Daytona. Let's drop back here and look at that second group that you were talking about, that secondary contact. And there are some drivers that are of the mentality, I'm going to come to a dead stop, wait for everything to settle out and drive on through. There are others that see the opportunity to pick up a couple of spots and improve their restarting position and aren't necessarily going to get on the brakes nearly as soon as the other drivers ahead of them. And oh, wow, there you see some further contact. I believe that was the 2 of Gene Cato getting to the back of Christopher Lawrence. And, the damage to the front end especially, that says to me, you're probably going to have to use a faster pair because that thing's not going to be aerodynamically sound down the straightaways.
Easily. You need that. You need kind of aerodynamic here as much as you do the engine. But I'll got to give the guys in the back who ended up kind of running over some of the guys a little bit of leeway here where I'm going to tell you that spoiler, and you hear jokes about it all the time, that big spoiler, that makes it almost impossible to see through the car in front of you. If you're right on his bumper, I mean, you kind of have to communicate with the guy in front of you saying, hey, if something's happening, you got to scream at me and I've got to start slamming the brakes because I cannot see in front of you.
Like 6 drivers are added to the tally of those that had to use their faster pair here, not even 5 laps into this race. TJ Roberts, Chris Papa, Zachary Kitzler, Gene Cato, Corey Saucier, and Christopher Lawrence. 2 of those, the 24 and the 9, playoff contenders. So if they're involved in another wreck, they've either got to ride it out with whatever damage they sustain, or if it can't drive anymore, their day is over. And for both of those drivers, respectively, coming into this race, they're both in a Final Four position. Third seed right now for Saucier and fourth seed, that critical fourth seed for Lawrence.
So you obviously mentioned some drivers ended up taking faster pairs. Lawrence, Saucier, and it looks like Kitzler were one of them. And it looks like 6 guys already have taken faster pairs this early in the race. We are not even past the lap 5 example I gave. I mean, how does this switch your mindset? Where obviously you're kind of playing risk versus reward, trying to attack up front, but again, you don't really want to put yourself in that of a situation later in the race in case this does go green.
Especially when you've used that faster pair not even 10 laps into the race. You know, it might be an easier choice if, let's say, we had gone to about maybe a 20 to 30 lap run. Then you probably would feel a little bit safer using the faster pair. You've got quite a number of laps already completed, but I mean, you've got nearly the entire race still left to run, and you don't have a faster pair to fall back on now.
I mean, it's like I tell you week in and week out. I mean, here's the thing. It's if you're left with a faster pair at the end of the race, you feel like you're too conservative and you could have pushed more, and if you have no faster pair at the end of the race, I really kind of took it a little bit too aggressive. I need the save.
Well, as we enter here into Memorial Day weekend, want to give a shout out to the scheme being run on the 49 of Kyle Gartner, who qualified on the outside of the front row here tonight. Gartner running the U.S. Army livery, and he's doing that in honor of his cousin, who was killed in action in 2003, just a few weeks removed from his 21st birthday, remembering Sergeant Donald Oakes Jr. here on this Memorial Day weekend. And a lot of drivers during the course of this weekend in several leagues will obviously be running those patriotic schemes to fallen victims through the past.
What is kind of nice, where they did allow them to put the names of the soldiers on the banners.
Yeah.
Like the regular series. So it's actually kind of nice. You can kind of spotlight anyone who would you prefer. But, I mean, kind of going back to the race here, I'm kind of wondering here, does that spook some of the drivers kind of involved in that or kind of around that instant? But we need to take it a little bit easier, or is it going to be a still side-by-side kind of race here?
Yeah, it's interesting because you can end up seeing a super speedway race play a couple of ways, and one of the common ways is they've got the adrenaline, they've got the anticipation. When that green flag drops, they feel that they can make any kind of move possible to get up to the front. Then the caution comes out, and all of a sudden everybody has a little bit of a mental check of, wait, hold on, it's still early on in this race. Let's calm down and keep this thing in one piece so that way it'll be able to actually battle for that checkered flag. So I think you're going to end up seeing these drivers kind of tone it down just a little bit. I don't think you'll see nearly the aggressive side-by-side racing that you saw there in those first couple of laps. Obviously, they'll still be passing for position, but I don't think quite to the scale of what we saw at the initial start of this race.
I mean, you got to remember, hey, you've sat through about 30 minutes of practice. You've done almost an hour of practice. You sat through a whole qualifying session. You get ready, and then on lap 3, you're involved in instant. And, you know, hey, that's stuff that can really end your race, and that's where you got to kind of take a moment to look back and say, hey, I got to take a little bit of a breather here.
Well, a driver that has had a lot of momentum, not a playoff contender.
Oh, man, that outside line is stacking. They're 3 wide up there.
Yeah, they are. I can't tell who that is up on the extreme outside line. I believe that might actually be the 43 of Ryan Phillips, starting to fall back through the field. But it looks like we have already a driver out of this race. 2-time winner James Cato, who won the last race at Chicagoland. He has taken his car back behind the wall. Didn't even make it to lap 10, did the multi-time winner.
Yeah, but I just took a little bit of a look at Ryan Phillips. It looks like Phillips may have lost. May have just starting in the wrong gear. Maybe just missed a shift, but that has pretty much regulated him all the way back to about almost 29th place here.
And DJ Daniel didn't exactly get the best of restarts. It looked like Matthew Robinson and Jeffrey Vickery were hooked up better on the top side, and that's finally going to allow Vickery to clear for the race lead, putting the teammates in the 99 and 96 side by side for second place.
But this is exactly what I was talking about, that you don't want to happen. I mean, look at how far Hubka's from TJ Roberts and the rest of that big pack. I mean, realistically, they cannot make that up unless they really start checking that inside line very hard. And you know, I don't see that happening here early in the race, where here's the thing, if we have a long green flag run, they can easily get about half a field back. And if we have to do green flag pit stops, it puts you at so much more of a disadvantage.
Definitely does. So you can see more patriotic schemes out there. Third place running the 98 of Jeremy Richmond, the JKR Motorsports Camaro, with the United States Navy on the side of his machine.
And they are still getting a little bit racy up there in that pack. I'm kind of surprised that, anyone wants to do that too wide. It looks like Noah Owens cut down to the inside line.
Noah Owens, at least right now, looks like he may have been the driver that's gained the most spots since the start. Was all the way back in 28th. That's only 2 spots higher than dead last, and now up into that 12th position. But as you mentioned, has his hands full there, and now looks ahead at a side-by-side battle between Shane Ledoux on the top, and that's Ryan Sizemore in the 8 on the inside line.
I'll give you a flip of the coin. I mean, Noah Owens has gained the most position since start, but the guy who has lost the most has to be Christopher Lawrence, obviously getting involved in an accident. And with that kind of botched restart from the 43 of Phillips, that's really kind of set him back. But I don't know if he got all the damage fixed in that car, since he's almost losing his second pack here.
Lawrence used the faster pair, so that car should be up to speed. I'm wondering if maybe this is strategy, though, just trying to keep himself out of trouble here, make sure that that car doesn't get torn up. Remember, he is a former winner this season at Daytona, so I'm sure that he came into this race with a contingency plan if he had to use that faster pair early, and this might be the execution of it. We may not understand it, but he might.
Here's the thing. I'm kind of watching some of these drivers, and I almost saw Simon Morrison and looks like Shane Ledoux almost have a kind of a wreck together in the last few laps. And what really looks like what's happening is a lot of these drivers are trying to aggressively side draft. But again, they may be kind of used to that old drafting model where you could really aggressively get on someone's side and it wouldn't really affect them that much, but it would aid you. But here's the thing, when you're really on the side of someone here, you can really take away all the grip off their spoiler and make them very, very loose in the rear end.
Looking ahead there from Ryan Sizemore to Bobby Anderson. Anderson take a couple of weeks off. Last time we saw him was at Bristol, where he finished 17th. Right now, Anderson running in the 6th position. And boy, these guys back here, in the second group, they have now caught up to the lead group, and they had so much momentum, they really had to check up quite a bit. That's why they're all side by side with Papa, Jones, Ledoux, Bud Barnes in this mix as well.
And you may be looking at these guys and wondering why they're not exactly on each other's bumpers. Well, just aero push is so strong here. I mean, you really don't need to get on someone's bumper to really make a good push. It looks like James Cato is actually back on track here.
And yes, he is. So not certain what the situation was there. It might have possibly been internet related, but he's going to come back out onto the track 5 laps down. Everybody else right now still on the lead lap.
I mean, you got to look. Yes, he is 5 laps down, but there is still a high chance that he can kind of get back in the lead lap with some good wave rounds, maybe some free passes if the kind of things fall right.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. Now, obviously, this league does not run with stage cautions or anything, so he wouldn't have those to fall back on. But you're right, if this turns into a race of attrition later on, as long as everybody still stays on the lead lap, he'll have a shot of maybe getting back into the hunt. As I'm watching some of these guys back here in the latter half of the top 5. The 96 of DJ Daniel, while he qualified on the pole position, we know he's got speed. Sometimes when you gain speed, you give up handling. And that 96 just does not look all that steady, especially down these straightaways.
That's the thing where I think really just riding in the draft, there's so much aero wake now. It just isn't as simple as a Sunday ivory, one hand on the wheel. You really have to fight these things down the straightaway. And it just may be because, hey, he's so far up in the field. I don't know if it's maybe pressure or nerves getting to him because, again, you're up in the field. You kind of have that pressure to stay up there. And you've seen some of these guys, like the 88 of Owens, he's going back to the back of the pack now. But if you get shuffled out to that outside, you're almost guaranteed to fall all the way back to about top 15 unless you got someone who's nice enough to let you in.
Now, Ryan Phillips, mentioned him having that slow restart there, the Victory Junction Gang 43. He is obviously, as you see there, with the bright green driver banner. He's a playoff contender. He came into this race a total of 4 points behind the cut line, and so he's obviously a driver that's hoping for a caution flag right now. There's actually quite a number of our playoff drivers that are running towards the back, some of them still up in the lead pack. I see Brock Silvati's back there, Corey Saucier's back there, as well as Christopher Lawrence. Of course, we kind of know why Saucier and Lawrence are back there. They're just trying to stay out of trouble because they're already a faster pair in.
So I've actually taken a little bit more of a look at why Ryan Phillips are so slow, because I was wondering why, I mean, even after he kind of got up to speed, why he just wasn't there. It was because he was involved in that accident. He never pitted. He never took any faster pair. He never got any damage fixed, but he did hit the side of Christopher Papa. And you see how much that has just killed his car. I mean, his top speed almost alone is about 170, while the leaders are going about 190, 195 in draft.
And that's not going to take very long for them to reel him in either. I know this
I
is
mean,
a big...
they're right there.
Oh, there it is. There he is.
They're
Yeah,
right
exactly.
So
Looks in
that's
his rearview mirror, and there's the pack.
So that's the trade-off where, yes, you do save that fast repair, but, I mean, listen, you've already put yourself at a huge disadvantage, and I think he was expecting, starting so far up in the pack, that he would have at least a little bit more assistance with the draft, but, I mean, just look at the front of that car. The front of that car is just pancaked in. There is a brick of air there.
Yeah, a lot of damage you could visibly see on the right front of that machine, and, you've been talking about the aerodynamics of these cars, and if you are even slightly damaged on the front end, that could translate to 1, 2, 3 miles per hour slower that you would be running than if that car was completely 100% and in pristine condition.
You got to imagine, too. I mean, again, the engine had to be hurt by that little bit of collision, so that's just kind of a double whammy. But the best thing that could happen to him right now is you just kind of fight to stay on that one lap down and kind of cross your fingers, hope that a caution comes out, falls your way, gets you back your lap, and take that fast repair, get yourself back in it.
Dropping back here to this, I guess we'll call this group number 2, and it's got about 9 drivers, and I'm seeing a number of our playoff contenders there as well. We already mentioned Lawrence and Saucy back here, Brock Silvati, Angel Santiago. You got Zachary Woods just up ahead as well in the 16. I believe that is Chris Hubka leading this group, so you've got a number of your playoff drivers that have all decided to drop back here in a group of their own, and you talk about those spotters up there on the roof doing a lot of communicating between their drivers and other drivers. You got to wonder how much communication is going on here, driver to driver, as well of, we've all got one goal. We want to have ourselves in the best position possible heading into Kentucky and Iowa. So, let's work together.
I can imagine those second pack drivers weren't exactly too pleased about Ryan Phillips kind of keeping that bottom line. I mean, you kind of saw a little bit of a miscommunication. Almost went 3 wide in the tri-oval by just, looks like a few guys getting together. But also with, looks like Cato and Kitzler, they had to almost split Ryan Phillips.
So far, we have run 13 laps here on this stint. Only 1 caution so far in this race. That was back on lap 2. So let's start to talk about potential green flag pit stops. And you talked about, the track temperature and everything, how slick the conditions are out there for these drivers. How tough is it going to be trying to slow the car down getting onto pit road? It's a flat apron. Tires aren't going to grip that much if the track's somewhat slick, so is that going to cause problems for these drivers having to do traffic control if they all come down in one big group?
With it just being a little bit hotter, I kind of keep that in my mental bank where, listen, I need to kind of brake just a little bit earlier, be a little bit easier on brakes. But here's the thing, if I'm planning my pit stop, I would be planning the pit after that first big group. Try to stay at it as long as possible. Make sure I've got my teammates around me, if I've got friends around me, let them know about, hey, we're going to stay out, see, and kind of cross our fingers that a big wreck happens when this first pack comes down the pit road. If that doesn't happen, all right, then we're going to have to kind of coordinate how we're all going to get in pit road. And it is such a madhouse when you try to get on the pit road where you can enter 3-4 wide and you're just trying to find a space where someone's not going to run you over.
Looking at drivers that might try and do that strategy, there were some drivers that came down pit road under that lap 2 yellow flag, topped off the fuel tank, came back out onto the racetrack. Jordan Stencil, the 64, right now the highest of those in the 6th position. You've also got TJ Roberts back there in 8th and Chris Papa in 11th. So these would be some of those drivers that could stretch it just a couple of laps further than everybody else and might fit into that strategy you just described.
Now here's the absolute key to this race is do not speed. Do whatever you have to do to not speed. If you speed on this pit road, your race is effectively done. I mean, here's the thing. It is a 40 to 45 second penalty in pit road where you have to sit and watch the cars go around. And these cars are doing about 50-second laps. That's easily 1-2 laps easily after pit stops. Another thing is some of these drivers may be trying to do a little bit different of strategy. Maybe trying 2 tires, maybe trying no tires. That's something you got to kind of take into effect when you're coming.
Sorry to cut you off. Ryan Sizemore tried to make a move on DJ Daniel, almost was going up the middle 3 wide. And I thought he and
they're going to turn to the back. Looks like that it may be Lawrence. No, TJ Roberts.
caution is going to fly. I think that might have just been a solo car incident, which I'm shocked with that being in the center of 3 and 4 that other drivers weren't involved.
I think that may have been a self-clear there.
Take a look and see what
But it
happened
looks like
here.
Christopher Papa was also involved in the incident. He's already used the fast repair.
They were all getting racy in the latter half of that lead pack, and I'm almost wondering if some of this might have been that little block that went on further up there with DJ Daniel and Ryan Sizemore that might have led to then the move by the 11 car.
Just looking here. Obviously, I can kind of see the block kind of thrown here. It makes sense. It kind of stops up that line. It stops at the line. The 11 lifts a little bit. He gets a bit out of lane. But then he just decides to chop the front of the 49.
Yeah.
Maybe his spotter said clear, and he still took it as clear, and he came down because he was kind of advancing quite rapidly. But I think that was kind of DJ Daniels at least a little bit of doing, throwing that block. But that was kind of at least a little bit of a lack of awareness from the 49. Just, hey, that's the general check, but I'm not sure of the situation behind him. He may have gotten run over if he lifted. But tough break for Christopher Pop. I mean, I've just noticed he's got front end damage. He's probably got a little bit of engine damage from that. That could easily kind of end his night. Probably put him around Ryan Phillips here for the rest of the race.
Christopher Papa and the 13 will go on board with him, see what he saw. He's not come to pit road yet, but as you mentioned, already has used his fast repair, and we can see here the damage that he has on the left front of his machine as a result. He might be okay.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
so
looking
deceptive.
at it now. I'm looking at it now, and it's only left front, really, and it's got a little bit of crinkle about a splitter. It's definitely going to affect him aerodynamically. The biggest question is engine. I mean, here's the thing.
Yeah.
If your front is crunched, that's fine as long as you're tucked up behind another car. But if you've got engine damage, your day is kind of over because regardless how aerodynamically sound that car is, you just don't have the power to keep up with them.
I'm not sure how close these drivers were to having to make green flag pit stops, but everybody was on pit road. Some drivers electing to go with a 2-tire strategy, including DJ Daniel and Jordan Stencil, who will emerge first and second. Other drivers, though, going to go with the 4-tire strategy, including Robinson, Richmond, and Anderson, who will make up the top 5 there. And just going real quick to the Chris Papa thing that you were talking about, there's like a gray area where it looks like it could be worse than it is, or it looks like it could be, nothing to worry about, and then all of a sudden that car has lost a lot of speed. It's one of those situations where it's just wait and see if that car is going to be up to speed once we get back under the green flag.
Well, a good example could be Kyle Gartner. I mean, definitely looking at the front of his car, he's kind of got the same situation where it's smack dab on the nose, and you see that splinter down there is a bit crinkled. But I don't think he may have gotten any actual engine damage out of this because he did assist in the 11 going around. But I don't know. I think that's more or less the case of you're going to have to be tucked up around another car, maybe have another car behind you to assist you in the draft. But your engine and everything should still be good, and you still got that one fast repair to rely on.
To bring up a question here to you because I'm not all that familiar with how these cars would be at this speedway on the iRacing sim. TJ Roberts, that spin down there nose first from the banking of the turn to the flat apron. Would that be causing any kind of damage around the splitter area, or did he basically dodge a bullet there?
Well, on the bright side, he did take a fast repair, so that definitely did assist him a bit. But obviously, it depends on what angle you come at and how the sim decides really how damage to your front of your splinter is kind of put up. But it's going to be the same situation as we're going to be in the 49, where if any damage around that front nose area, it would bend up that splitter a little bit, and it would affect him aerodynamically. But as long as the engine is fine, you've got nothing to worry about.
Looks like the only driver that took the fast repair there under that caution was the aforementioned TJ Roberts. Should mention as well that James Cato, after he returned back into the server, he actually was a driver who had used a fast repair after the first caution, and he, I believe, did not get the free pass under this yellow because the 43 of Ryan Phillips had fallen a lap down. Phillips, I believe, would have been the lucky dog recipient, but he currently sits on pit road in the 43 car.
Actually, I want to correct that a little bit. TJ Roberts actually took his fast repair early in the race. He did not have one fast repair left, so he still has a little bit of damage on that left rear and deck lid. That deck lid is a tricky place, obviously with the aerodynamics going over the car, but look at the spoiler. The spoiler is straight. That's what I'm more or less looking at. The spoiler is straight, the splinter is straight. It's just the bodywork on the side and the deck lid a little bit. But honestly, I think that car should, as long as there's no engine damage, should still be 100%.
Lose out on the track position, obviously. He was up inside of the top 15 when the contact was made. Actually, might have been in the latter half of the top 10 at the time that he and Gartner made the contact. He'll restart back in the 27th position. Looks like we're going to have 29 drivers come around to take this green flag as Phillips still sits on pit road. 28 of these drivers will still be on the same lap as leader DJ Daniel, who led us to green to start this race. He will lead us back to green here for the second restart of the day alongside of Jordan Stenzel. A lot of playoff banners up here in the first two rows with Matthew Robinson and Jeremy Richmond in third and fourth, Bobby Anderson fifth, Ryan Sizemore sixth, then Kyle Gartner, Simon Morrison, Patrick McQuaid, and Brock Silvati. That's going to be your top 10 as we get ready to go back green flag racing, closing in on a third of the way through this race within the next 10 laps.
I'm noticing the track starting to cool down a little bit. I'm also looking 97 to Brock Silvati, and he's got at least a little bit of nose damage I saw.
Yeah, Silvati was involved in that lap 2 incident, but he was not one of the drivers that elected to take a fast repair, so we'll see how his car does up here closer to the front, but in the draft. Green flag out, and boy, that outside line did not get going. You had Jeremy Richmond inside the rear bumper of Jordan Stenzel there, trying to push him, but the 64 just wouldn't go.
See, the biggest issue isn't that front line not going, it's the stack up created behind, because you obviously have guys who are trying to jump the restart, time the restart. And hey, we may have teammates back in the field that, let's say, hey, we're controlling the restart. I'll tell you, go, go, go. And you'll try to jump it with me. But hey, the outside line doesn't go. But now everyone's kind of vacate a little bit, 3 wide.
That was, I believe, Silvati in the middle. He's now going to drop to the inside. Stenzel up to the outside line. And yeah, to your point, obviously the driver that's second, third in line wants to help push the car in front, get that line moving as early as possible. But the car in front's not going to be able to go if his rear tires are off the ground.
That's the thing where you've got to factor in old tires and cold tires. Cold tires are, at least in my opinion, a little bit more deadly than worn tires where, listen, as soon as you come off pit road, you see some of these guys doing those aggressive swerves, trying to get at least a little bit of heat in them. But, I mean, if you're starting in first, second gear, you can easily spin those things.
Wow, we nearly had a wreck right there. J.R. Miller got a huge run onto the back bumper of Noah Owens. I don't know if Owens had to check up or what, but there was a huge big difference between those two cars. And J.R. Miller, we talked about Christopher Lawrence getting involved in that early incident. Miller was only 1 point behind Lawrence for that fourth spot in the standings, and right now, 78 clocking in the top 10.
I'm going to tell you, a guy who really scares me here at the moment is just Simon Morrison. I've seen him go all the way from the top lane to the bottom, back to the top, back to the bottom. I mean, he's obviously trying to make some moves happen, but I've got to wonder, word gets around here, and people kind of watch how you race, and that determines if they're going to work with you later in the race. Obviously, I'm not saying don't make moves, but you got to have to kind of factor that in you got to figure out who you're going to kind of pull in front of, who you're going to cut off, and who you're going to take the draft away from, since that will affect you later.
Yeah, obviously, if you're a teammate, then you're more than likely going to work with your teammates. But you're right, for a lot of these other guys that may not necessarily have teammates out there, they're having to use the first half of this race as a bit of an audition of, hey, I got a fast car later on this race. If we're going to make forward progress, you might want to work with me. But at the same time, if they're going to make aggressive moves, that might make drivers a little bit leery of trying to follow them in the closing stages. But right now, Morrison 13th, and behind him, you got Zachary Woods and Corey Saucier. Now, we talked about these two prior to the last yellow flag. We're running outside the top 20. Apparently now they feel it's safe to start tiptoeing their way towards the front of the field. They're now up inside the top 15.
I'm kind of debatable where it's go time, but I think they wanted to get away from it, a little bit of a backpack. And that's the problem when you get so far back in the pack. You've kind of got guys with different strategies of, yeah, we want to save, and no, we need to go, and we need to kind of skip over this pack. So it's just the difference of philosophies that really kind of makes the back of the pack struggle here unless you've got a large team that are willing to work with you and be on the same strategy. And I still think it's a little bit too early in the race. I don't think we've seen that last big wreck.
Saw the 34 of Simon Morrison. I think he tried to make another move there. Nobody went with him, and he's going to lose several positions here. So that was Gene Cato, Bud Barnes going around, James Santoyo about to make the move here on the inside line as well. So Morrison about to make an exit outside of the top 20, it would seem. Now, Ryan Phillips in the 43, he did get back onto the track just after they went back green. He is scored still 1 lap down, would get the free pass if another caution were to come out. But I think that if it remains green for the next 10-15 laps, he could actually fall a second lap down to the race leaders, because right now he's only about half a track ahead of these guys.
So, Seth, I know you're well-versed in the high line woes, but realistically, you may be wondering, why are some of these guys really jumping out to the high line when there's so many cars training on the inside? Well, actually, the high line here at Talladega and Daytona as well with the new drafting model, the high line does have more speed. If you get enough cars up there to work with you, they can actually overpower that large line in the bottom. Just the key word is you've got to find guys who are willing to work with you, and you've got to have trust. And again, if you're kind of making this ragtag group of like Simon Morrison pulling up the high lane without any plan, you're going to be the odd man out. But if you have a 4 or 5 car team come out there to the outside, you can aspire a little bit of confidence, get guys to join you there, and really make a run on that side to get back up to the front.
And my super speedway experience, on that
someone's in the
inside.
wall.
Oh, yes, indeed. That is, I believe, the 25 of Kitzler that's gone around. Nobody hit him. He did hit the inside wall, however. No oncoming traffic, so no caution.
Seth, I think you may be a little bit wrong in your sources. It looks like he got a little bit of assistance from TJ Roberts. But TJ Roberts also got a little bit of assistance from Clifford Corveau. Corveau pushed up out of the corner, smacked Roberts into the wall. Roberts came down right onto the 25. Roberts still looks like he's operational, but definitely hurt.
No, Roberts is actually on pit road now. That car was wrecking a little bit further down the back straightaway after the initial contact. Both he and the 25 have actually had to teleport to pit lane. No caution coming out, as that was closer to the rear of the field, and those drivers did not come back up on the racing surface, or at least the 25 didn't, until basically all the cars had passed. So with no oncoming traffic, no yellow flag flying here yet.
Yeah, I looked at Corvo's car, and Corvo's car is actually clean on the right side. Doesn't look like it had any damage. So maybe just a little bit of a bump, but that's the one thing you got to worry about, because I've noticed how close TJ Roberts was on the side of Clifford Corveau. I'm thinking he may have took the air off the spoiler a little bit, got the car a little bit pushy out of the corner, and that was the result.
So that's going to put TJ Roberts and Zachary Kitzler at least 2 laps down there, as they still sit on pit road. And actually, I believe Kitzler may be done for the day. He was a driver, and TJ Roberts, who had already used their fast repairs, and Kitzler indeed is being pushed back into the infield to the garage. So tough break there for him. Looking here at 6th place, actually correction, 7th place running James Jones. Now, we talked about the fact that the points are still awfully close after Chicagoland, only 18 point separation between the top 4 in the point standings and the rest of the 12 drivers behind them. Jones is that 16th driver in points, 18 points back. So obviously you got to think that he was looking at Talladega as an opportunity to be able to gain a lot of positions and a lot of points heading into next week.
You got to think it puts a lot of these guys in the hot seat, where you got to be worried about your upcoming week of, hey, it came from me having an okay day at Iowa and maybe an okay day in the final round, to, well, now I really have to have a really good day at Iowa, or I need to go out and win both races. Yeah. But, I mean, look at how big of a gap this is put between both the front pack and the secondary pack. And this just goes to show. It doesn't seem like the 15th place of Bud Barnes is really too far out to not catch the front pack. But unless they're really going, they're going to end up losing that pack.
Yeah, they were about 1.5 seconds behind. That interval is closing, as they now are 9/10 off the back bumper of Zachary Woods. And it looks like this group of 7 that they will be able to catch up to the lead group again. They're running single file. They're double wide ahead of them for about 2 rows. So these 7 should be able to latch back on to the tail end of the lead group, which would give us a total of 21 drivers up in this lead pack. One driver that is conspicuously missing up here, that ran towards the front a good portion of the early stages of this race, that's the 21 of Jeffrey Vickery. We saw him actually lead a couple of laps early on, but he's now faded back here to the 9 of Christopher Lawrence. So I don't know if just that he ended up getting left out to dry, or if he's back here on purpose, maybe dropping back here with teammate Shane Ledoux in the 91.
I think Christopher Lawrence also has that same strategy because I just noticed he really dropped back. At least his top position just started riding all the way back here. Now for him, it makes a little bit more sense that he doesn't have any more fast repairs to rely on. But I do notice he does have some guys behind where he can really work with. It looks like Ryan Phillips, unfortunately, went another lap down.
Did.
Aye. Bad day gets worse.
It definitely does, and Phillips up to this point has not used that fast repair.
Yikes. What is he doing?
Oh, there they go.
Oh.
Phillips around. He's collected up the 34 of Simon Morrison, and no caution, as that was down technically off the racing surface below the double yellow line.
I kind of see what went wrong there. I kind of want to blame that on both parties there because obviously I don't know why Ryan Phillips was running in the middle of the track, but obviously I don't know if it was the correct move for Bud Barnes to go onto the outside of him to try and pass him when he was trying to go up. So I don't know.
Certainly did not aid Simon Morrison, who was at the time up around the 15th position when the contact was made between him and the 43 of Ryan Phillips. Phillips is, I believe, still running, and he is now 2 laps down. And Simon Morrison, I believe, is now coming to pit lane to get the damage repaired on his 34 machine. We've had 2 incidents here that have not warranted a caution flag coming out, and the guy right now that is saying, come on, I need these yellows, is the 3 of James Cato. He has picked up 2 spots after Zachary Kitzler and TJ Roberts have both declared themselves out of the race. So he's up to 28, but he's still got 4 more laps he's got to pick up here so he can be in the running for this trophy by the end of the night.
And then there were 15 in the main pack. Obviously, you see the pack up here starting to thread out or just thin out just a little bit with Clifford Corvo kind of leading that secondary pack. But past Corvo and it looks like Vickery, the pack really starts getting a bit more spread out.
You're looking here at your top 2. These 2 drivers, between the 2 of them, have 6 victories combined. Matthew Robinson, we mentioned that Christopher Lawrence has a Daytona win. Robinson won the season opener at Daytona as well. So those are your 2 former Super Speedway winners coming into this Talladega race. These 2 have to work just as hard here today at Talladega as anybody. Yes, they had 3 wins apiece during the regular season, but as we said, with the playoff format where it whittles down from 16 to 4 drivers after 4 races, those race wins don't calculate to bonus points. Everybody was all at the same calculation of 1,500 points at the end of the regular season, and DJ Daniel and Robinson themselves came into this race respectively only 6 and 3 points ahead of that 4th in the standings cut line.
And you got to remember, at the end of the day, a win's still a win. And hey, a win at Talladega, that will make your next 2 weeks a lot easier, a lot less pressure where, yes, it doesn't lock you in, but it gives you a good enough points gap where you can really kind of rely on where you don't need to go out and dominate those races to really make sure you're going to be locked in. But it doesn't really kind of let you have that full ride. You still need to do well.
So a question for you. We talked about the fact that, some drivers didn't run so well last week at Iowa. Some drivers did. Obviously, we're going to be running Iowa again in a couple of weeks. Would a good finish here at Talladega 1 week later kind of counter a poor performance that you had at Iowa last week? Or do you still have to concentrate on Iowa as an entity all to itself when we get to it before Homestead?
I mean, realistically, Iowa in itself is really just kind of a beast of its own. And we saw that last week. But I mean, last week kind of gave you a reality check a little bit of, how good do you think your Iowa package is? And unfortunately, a lot of those guys kind of got that reality check of, maybe I'm not as sure in my Iowa skills as I am. So this has kind of afforded them an extra week where they can really practice, fine-tune their skills. But it also puts a little bit more pressure on, obviously, Matthew Robinson, DJ Daniel, and James Cato, where they did have really good runs at Iowa. But obviously, unfortunate circumstances really just kind of took them all out of it. Whether it be from DJ Daniel, he got a damage early in the race, decided not to take a fast repair, kind of set him back. Or kind of with Robinson and Cato, where more or less strategy just kind of ruled them out of that one.
We've seen a couple of drivers start fading towards the back the longer this run's gone on that are out there dealing with damage. One driver looks like he's still been able to kind of hold his own despite the damage we know he got all the way back on lap 2, the 97 of Brock Silvati. So this would be the case that maybe the car might not be the fastest when it's out there in clean air based on the fact that he's got a pretty good dent in the front end of his Camaro, but as long as he's in the draft, looks like that car is pretty well up to speed.
Yeah, I'm thinking Silvani is really the case of, I mean, if you look at his spoiler's a little bit crinkled. If you look at the front end, the splitter, the front end smushed in. But obviously he's got that car behind him. He's got that car in front of him. He's not race-winning pace, but he's hanging around.
I think it was back at Texas. It might have been Texas, it might have been Richmond. I'm trying to remember which one it was. But all the JKR cars were all running a similar livery, but different colors. I've actually just noticed that all of them are out here running the U.S. Armed Forces sponsorships on their car. We saw that Jeremy Richmond had U.S. Navy. You can see the U.S. Air Force on the 97.
Look at that outside of Hubka. I think if Hubka gets another guy with him, he can really kind of make that outside run work. He needs more help on that outside, but that shows you the power of that outside line.
He's only got 5 drivers up there right now. Ryan Sizemore, Zach Woods, David Modespon. I believe that's the 2 of Gene Cato up there as well. Kyle Gartner. Oh, I think he wanted to go up there, but he already had the 5 alongside of him, so too little, too late.
That's the thing when we just look at the strength of that outside line. The biggest issue is, again, when it comes down to the waning laps, you kind of got guys, and we've all been in this situation where you see that inside line, you see it having the majority of the guys, you see it moving like this, and you're looking at it like, honestly, if I see a hole, I'm going to take it. And that's really what kills the outside line run. But if you get enough guys on that outside line, it will be much faster than the inside lane.
Yeah, they've gained another driver up there. Bobby Anderson jumping out from the 4th position to try and lead that top side. And I'm almost wondering if we're starting to maybe close in on green flag pit stops too, because when we start to get to that point where drivers have to start figuring out when they want to come to pit road, who they want to come to pit road with, that's when drivers start to what we call set themselves up for that green flag pit stop, try to pick up a couple last-minute positions before eventually having to head down pit lane.
That's kind of setting yourself up for success. Now, looks like someone went around. Caution's
That's
out.
Richmond. 98 of Jeremy Richmond off the nose of somebody off of turn 2, and that is going to bring out the yellow flag.
Looks like he also clobbered the wall a little bit. Almost avoided it completely until it slid into the inside wall. I think that's going to be a fast repair. That has damaged the spoiler a little bit and the outside of that car, but I don't know. That's going to be a debatable if he's going to take one or not.
Possibly on the cusp of green flag pit stops, the yellow flag going to fly, and Richmond was running at the time up inside of the top 5. I think he was actually unofficially at the time running in the 4th spot.
I'm kind of looking at this, and it may be more of the same where it looks like Richmond really just kind of checked up, because obviously you look at the 49 and 99 in front of him. It makes sense where he checked up a little bit, and kind of the muffle man came and ran him down, where I don't know if he was expecting him to lift that much. And at that point, it was, hey, he kind of had to go through him or really kind of check up the whole inside lane.
Yeah, it was kind of tough to see from that camera angle. What was it that made Richmond check up that much? Was it the fact that the car ahead of him, of Gartner, might have been trying to generate a run out of turn 2? Actually, it looks like the 96 lost some speed.
I mean, look at the 96. 96 kind of blinks in and out for a minute, but I'm looking at 99. I'm looking at 99 and Matthew Robertson. He kind of jumps out of lane kind of abruptly. And when he jumps out of lane, he kind of almost looks like he either feathers the throttle or kind of hits the brake a little bit to make sure the 49 kind of stays with him, but he can stay behind the 96. The 49 goes up with him. But when the 49 goes up with him, he had to jump out of it. And kind of Jeremy Richmond's back there kind of wondering the same thing of what in the world are they doing? At that point, McQuaid just didn't see him.
Did the 99 maybe jump out of the throttle because the 96 disappeared?
It could have been. I'm not going to roll that out, but it's almost just like the chain reaction in front of him. And it just goes down the rest of the field where hey, maybe the first 4 guys will see it, but the 5th guy he can't see it that well.
Third caution of the day. A couple of drivers that this caution will benefit would obviously be Ryan Phillips in the 43 He was needing a caution flag to come out so that way he could get some more damage repaired after that incident between himself and Simon Morrison on the back straightaway that did not bring out a yellow flag. Morrison, by the way, has actually gone to the garage area, joining TJ Roberts and Zachary Kitzler. And I believe that Phillips is actually going to benefit from this as well, with the fact I believe he would be the free pass car under this yellow flag.
It's a bold move from Bud Barnes here. Kind of surprised he decided to stay out, especially with the stint being as long as it has been. I'm kind of wondering if he's expecting maybe a quick caution to kind of maybe cycle him out in pits, but I don't know. I wonder if he's just trying to lead a lap.
It could be. Could be trying to lead a lap here. He does have some damage on the rear end of his machine, I just noticed there. So this could be just the strategy to get a lap led bonus point and then bring it down pit road. Barnes was run up inside the top 15 at the time that caution came out. As a matter of fact, I would hazard a guess that that back-end damage that he had might have been from that stack-up when he tried making the 3-wide move around Ryan Phillips back during that last run.
Absolutely, that might be a little bit. I know one guy who's hoping he pits this upcoming round has to be James Cato. See, he's kind of jumping up and down saying, hey, man, you're going to pit so I can get my free pass here? Or at least try to get my wave around here?
And I believe the 90 of Angel Santiago, who somehow fell 6 laps down. Not sure what happened with him. Yeah, he was running towards the back of the pack, but still in the lead lap most of this race. But that's tough because that's another playoff contender. Centoyo coming into this 15th of the 16 playoff contenders, 17 points outside of the final 4.
Looks like Cato may have actually pitted under green flag pit stops. Not sure.
And looks like Barnes is going to stay out another lap here.
Bold move.
Yeah, I think the lights are going to go out this time. So he would end up being the one leading us back to green. 23 laps he has been out there since his last trip to pit lane. And, I mean, we'll see if this works out for him. But on the flip side, if we go into a long green flag run, he's going to be more than likely coming to pit lane all by himself. And we've already seen in the case of Ryan Phillips that one car cannot generate enough speed to stay on the lead lap in a long green flag run. The pack will reel you in very quickly.
I mean, this kind of throws a wrench in at least the kind of DJ Daniels' plans here a little bit, because he was expecting to have that lane choice ability and figure out where he wants to start from. So, hey, it puts him on at least a little bit less of a preferred line here.
And now the 83 is going to drop back.
The 83 was given an EOL penalty. Looks like Bud Barnes wanted to go to the back of the pack, but that kind of hurts at least some of the guys who wanted to get a wave around.
Yeah, you're right. It certainly does. Yeah, the 3 of James Cato and the 90 of Angel Santiago very likely could have taken a wave around there if the 83 had pit. But now they will both remain 5 laps down for Cato and 6 laps down for Santiago. Now, this did not change the strategy of now leader Ryan Sizemore. I'm a little bit surprised. If I were Sizemore, I would take the top for no other reason than to break up those JKR Motorsports teammates, because you're going to have the 96 and the 99 lined up nose to tail here, and we know they're going to hook up as quickly as possible to try and get back up to the front.
Absolutely. I think actually it was the positions may have been automatically locked in by iRacing, since whenever a car ends up, at least 1 leg ago, when a car ends up dropping out of its lane, the guys who are in the inside lane or the lane that whoever dropped out, all of them were just supposed to move up and not re-rack the whole entire field, so it may have locked them into the top side.
With Bud Barnes dropping to the back, 24 drivers will be on the lead lap of 27 that are still out there and running. We are 3 laps away from halfway through the Splash and Go Graphics 250 at Talladega. What do you say we crank things up here at Talladega Superspeedway? Ryan Sizemore hanging tough there on that inside line. Bobby Anderson in tow. That outside line being led by DJ Daniel. They were able to hold side by side for that first lap, but now they are losing numbers in that second groove.
That's the thing. You got to have to look at that second groove here, but I'm looking at Sizemore, and Sizemore's at least trying to get a good gap, it looked like, on DJ Daniel and the rest of the guys, but you got to have to kind of have that heads-up awareness where if you get too far out, you're going to get freight trained.
He's got Bobby Anderson right behind him. Patrick McQuaid has now moved up into the third position, and James Jones, as we mentioned, 16th of the 16 playoff contenders after Chicagoland. He's now up inside of the top 5, being flanked by Kyle Gartner in the 49. DJ Daniel trying to force his way down there into the inside line. He was able to find a hole just in front of, I believe that was Robinson, who then was let in as well by teammate Brock Silvati.
I'd usually say it's a bit too early, but I mean, it's halfway now, and you kind of have to look at some of these guys here and say, hey, I'm kind of making my bets. But, I mean, you got to look at DJ Daniel, where he's been up in the front of the pack for most of this race. This puts him in an unusual territory, unusual situation.
Now, a driver, I'm not certain when he took it, that also is now taken on a faster pair is Angel Santiago, 6 laps down. And when we had the crank it up there, we saw the 83 of Bud Barnes came to pit road. He came down and he took on a faster pair here for the second half of this race.
That puts him the first car 1 lap down. I mean, I'm just kind of seeing a lot of these guys getting really racy up here. Now, obviously, you wonder why some of these guys are kind of pushing up out of turn 1, or sorry, pushing up out of turn 2 and sometimes turn 4. Just with the amount of aero that's in these cars now and how the draft package works, I mean, it just, a lot of these cars get a bit tight exiting 2, and it will throw them up the field just a little bit if you don't lift a little bit.
J.R. Miller back there. He's the driver trying to get the second line working, but he's all the way back in 11th place, trying to get alongside of Gene Cato on the inside. He's got Noah Owens up there with him, as well as Jordan Stencil. So you got some playoff drivers trying to make the second lane work. Corey Saucier there in the 24 as well. Obviously, Corey Saucier needing a good run here tonight. He was the driver that would have been the winner had the Iowa race last week been counted. He'll have to rely on another victory in a couple of weeks' time when we head back to Iowa Speedway. Right now, he is in the 18th position. And as far as all of our playoff contenders are concerned, the only 2 drivers right now that are in danger of a poor performance here at Talladega as they currently run are Ryan Phillips 2 laps down and Angel Santiago 6 laps down. All the rest of the playoff drivers are still on the lead lap. And so fortunes can change here in the second half of this race, whether they're running at the front or mid-pack or rear of the field right now.
Honestly, I don't want to be that kind of guy, but I'd start sounding the alarm if I was Santiago and just say, hey, I mean, listen, it's only been really 1 race in the playoffs, but you're already at effectively entering this race a 14-point disadvantage, and right now you're kind of not improving things where, I mean, listen, you have to have something to kind of claw your way back in this race, but your next 2 races are going to be so vital for you.
If you have back-to-back poor performances, as you were just talking about right there, you could end up going into Kentucky in that second Iowa race practically in a must-win situation. Even though a win would not lock you into the playoffs, it's not or into the Final Four, it's not a win you're in situation. You would at least need that win to get the max points that you lost in the first 2 races.
I wouldn't even say that a win would even save you there. Where, I mean, here's the thing: your fate is so determined on other guys around you, where you have to be so dependent on them having a bad day or maybe them being just a little bit off. Where in kind of the playoffs, that doesn't happen. You kind of bring your best to the best, and yeah, some guys fade, but I mean, I don't foresee that big of mistakes happening.
Looking at the 5 of Chris Hubka there. Right now, he is the only driver inside of the top 12 that has had to use a faster pair here in the first half of the race. And right now, he's racing as if he still has a faster pair to use. He's been pretty aggressive, working his way up through the field. Started this race in 17th, fell back as far as outside of the top 20, and now he's up here inside of the top 10 alongside of J.R. Miller for 7th.
I'm telling you, I don't think DJ Daniel is that confident in his car. I mean, I don't know if he's really spent that much time in this draft. I mean, I'm seeing him kind of run the outside line a little bit high. See, don't know who, but I think that is
Noah Owens.
I think that's Corvette up there too. Corvette was really running an inside line all the way down.
Let's try a third lane there to the outside of DJ Daniel, but no friends up there to help him out. He'll tuck back in line, and these guys are getting a little bit racy here from around the 5th position on back. Another driver jumping up there, Patrick McQuaid. He's going to pick up Corvo in the 57.
I think McQuaid kind of killed the run on the outside where you kind of stopped them all up to see if he can get any hole to the inside, but now we see that outside line start to fade where, listen, the moment you start losing momentum, that's when a lot of guys say, all right, I'm out, I'm going to cut my losses and jump back inside. And just look, that huge, almost 7-8 car train on the outside turned into really a 4-car train with 1 car ahead.
Now Noah Owens trapped on the outside line. I think he was trying to help tow Corvo and company on that outside line. It might actually work, because look at the run the 57 is actually going to get through 1 and 2, pulling up to the back bumper of the 88. So amazing that a car 4 car lengths ahead was able to help pull that entire outside line up to where he was.
The biggest issue of that outside line, it's fast, don't get me wrong, but look at that. Look at how much great of a run they got and how much they really had to check up to avoid just taking out Noah Owens there. That's the one thing, is you don't really want to hit these cars with your bumper. You want to kind of arrow push them ahead, and you almost saw the accordion effect all the way back almost to the 24.
That's something I was actually just going to bring up to you, so I'm glad you touched on it. At what point does push come to shove where you're going to actually have to line up your bumpers and try and help push that car down the straightaway for max speed to keep everybody at bay? Right now, they're keeping the space between them, their own cars, but at some point, you're probably going to have to think about shoving that car ahead of you.
I'm going to tell you, there's going to be, I think, at least one more wreck, and it's going to be one of these guys trying to just dart in and out of lanes and just self-clearing themselves. I mean, we saw it with Corey Saucier. He almost took off the nose of the 91.
Side-by-side battle is going on with Noah Owens and James Santoyo, a couple of playoff drivers. This is just outside of the top 10 that this battle is going on. Zach Woods in the 60 behind the 79 on the top side. Corvo trying to help push the 88 of Noah Owens. And sometimes too, and you can attest to this, sometimes that outside line, it'll move forward or it won't make any progress depending on the driver that is actually leading that lane. And wow, did you see how Noah Owens pinned down the 79 and got him really out of shape there in 1 and 2? That looked eerily similar to what we saw bring out our first caution back on the second lap.
That's a tough part of, listen, whoever you have leading this pack really determines the momentum that you have. And unfortunately, you really have to do that to kind of make some progress here. If no one's ahead of you is jumping out to help, and your help behind isn't really pushing, as so much is said for the great leader of that second pack, it says so much about the guy who's trying to help him. And I've noticed Corvo is not really getting on his bumper. He's not really sucking up to him. He's just kind of riding in place, and that's not going to push the outside line. That's just going to stall it out.
Of riding, I think that's basically right now what at least our top 10, maybe 13, 14 are doing. All single file, nobody really making any aggressive moves, everybody just riding for the time being. So what are they riding for? Are they riding till the next caution, or are they riding to the round of green flag pit stops, which would potentially be the first one here today? I mean, these drivers are yet to make a green flag pit stop, so it's not like they've got some previous experience of what the track conditions are going to be like trying to get these things wound up. So they're almost going into this thing blind outside of any practice that they did earlier on tonight.
So I could touch on that a little bit, where we were kind of mentioning earlier, where it's kind of setting yourself up for success, where whether that be in the front of the pack or dropping back from the front of the pack to try to find an open lane where you can get the pit road unavoided. And
oh, wow. Big stack up.
And that's what's going to happen. I was kind of worried of how they were making those moves. And Noah Owens here. Almost.
Oh, hang on to it, Corey. Corey's got it right down there on the apron. He tried to come back up, and Santoyo wouldn't give him the space to be able to merge back up there in turn 1. Saucier almost went around. Heck of a save there all the way through the apron of 1 and 2 by the 24.
But that definitely hurts me. Look at how much time they've lost.
Drop him back, that drops Noah Owens back, that also drops back Santoya and Clifford Corvo. Chris Papa, I think, was also involved in that stack up, and he lost a number of positions as a result.
He's still hanging in that top 15, but that's a huge setback for him.
Now it's going to be Matthew Robinson that's going to try and lead the outside line. He's got Zachary Woods up there with him. Or actually, correction, I think that actually is DJ Daniel in the 96 leading. We've got Robinson back behind the 60. He's third on that line with David Modespa in the 1. Oh, Daniel, wow, that car, again, really loose. Look at that thing out of shape. Again, that car looks like it's set up for being out in front, but really moves around a lot when he's back in traffic.
Which is really surprising with it being a fixed set here. It just kind of shocks me how out of shape that car is, but just makes me believe like he hasn't done that much practice not leading, where it looks like he was just planning to stay in front the entire race and wasn't really focusing with drafting with other cars.
Well, I mean, in all honesty, you know, even if you put a lot of practice into it, are you able to, and as Dale Jr. says, see the air and know how it's going to affect the race car for every type of scenario?
No, not exactly. I mean, listen, these cars act differently no matter where you are on the track, whether you have guys behind you, guys beside you. It's really just your instinct. You're riding on instinct of, I mean, this worked every other time, but I've tried it, so let me try it here. And I think that's what DJ Daniel's doing, where he's doing what he knows, but it just depends whether what he knows is really working with his current package.
There's the 98 of Jeremy Richmond off the pace after he got the inside wall off of turn 2, bringing out our latest caution. And he is going to fall one lap down under green flag conditions as Ryan Sizemore shows the way here at Talladega Superspeedway. We're going to step aside for a commercial break. You're not going to miss a thing. We're going to go FRN side by side. If trouble breaks out, we'll break in. Ooh. You're watching the Splash and Go graphics. Do we have trouble?
Zachary Woods got at least a little bit of help from Gene Cato. They all kept it straight, but man, they are really getting racy on that outside line.
Okay, let's see if we can cut the commercial break before trouble breaks out. You're watching the Splash and Go Graphics 250 for BackFire Sim Racing here on the Flatout Racing Network.
Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCars. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and T. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you could only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engines. Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCars. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and T. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you could only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engines. Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCars. And today we're excited.
Continue under the green flag here at Talladega Super Speedway, but we've had a couple of contenders for our possible next caution of the race, and saw just moments ago our race leader Ryan Sizemore getting loose. Don't know if he got a big push from Anderson going into 3 or what, but both cars had their left sides down below the double yellow line, very squirrely going into the corner. Losing that momentum, that puts DJ Daniel from the top back to the lead, Woods to second, and Miller into third.
You know, realistically, no one looks extremely comfortable for a car right now. They just kind of are on edge. I mean, it's kind of worth noting, but the track has cooled down just a little bit. And you see right there's a little bit of shade going onto the front straightaway.
So I really don't want to jinx it. I'd love to see what these drivers are able to do in terms of execution of a green flag pit stop. But every time I talk about it, we get into that window and a caution comes out. But I'm going to mention it anyway because it is worth mentioning. With the fact that the track contentions are cooling down a little bit, but we're seeing these drivers still slipping and sliding around, we know that sometimes
it's
drivers...
3-4-1 up there. It's not going to work. They're
Ooh,
4-1.
That's Jones, Miller, Woods, and Sizemore. It's back to 3 wide down the back straightaway.
Oh, we're 3-3.
And Sizemore...
Bobby
and
Anderson.
Jones into Woods.
That was a bold move out of Anderson. I didn't think he was going to go all the way down there.
Well, that's all took a moment to catch our breaths here, drivers and commentators alike. My goodness. Oh, they were trying to bring out a caution, it seems there. A lot of contact exchanged, but you come down pit road here, I'm going to guess you're probably going to have to take on 2 cans of fuel because we're 24 laps into this stint. There's going to be about 30 laps left from this point on. Do you take on fresh tires? Does that give you an advantage or not?
I mean, here's the thing. It will make the car probably feel a little bit nicer. Just the fact of when you have those tires, it's a little bit cooler. It probably would give you a little bit more control of your car, at least with this really hot track. But realistically, as long as you haven't been abusing them, I think you're honestly fine without taking tires. Just the thing is, would you really want to take 2 tires or no tires? Because really, if you take 2 tires, you have the difference in temperatures, the difference in wears on both sides. But when you're coming off a pit road on a green flag pit stop, that is perfect recipe just to spin out the car.
Absolutely.
But if you take no tires, I mean, obviously that still has the risk of you're running on old tires coming off of that pit road. There is a risk you can easily spin it out in that corner, just not having enough grip or the tires just being way too hot.
Would old tires cause you to not be able to generate a run as easily as it would if you had fresh rubber underneath you?
I think realistically, it wouldn't. It may take maybe a minute or a second longer to make that run, but really what those tires will give you is just confidence. They'll give you confidence in what you got because they'll grip just a tiny bit better than what you've got right now. It won't be something that you can say, oh, well, this is generating me 3-4 miles an hour of speed, but just something where maybe if you turn up to the outside lane really quickly, you'd feel a little bit more confident about your car.
Ryan Sizemore continuing to show the way. Last time out in the first playoff race at Chicagoland, we had a non-playoff contender in James Cato go to victory lane. Cato actually was just on pit road a couple of laps ago, so that might give an idea of just how soon we'll expect to see these race leaders down pit lane, potentially under green flag conditions. But talking about non-playoff contenders right now, 3 of them inside of the top 10, 2 of them leading this race with Sizemore and Anderson.
I wonder if they had something planned for at least the kind of end of this race because they really both made their charges here late.
And you would have to think that the 8 and the 96 at least would probably be some of the first ones on pit road, only for the reason that they've been out in front mostly here on this run. Thusly, they would be creating the draft for the drivers behind them and using up the most fuel.
Absolutely, and you got to think, you got to punch that air and you got to start saving fuel. I wonder if that's partly a reason where, yes, DJ Daniel has kind of been not at the front, but he's been hanging around where he can be in that draft. I just wonder if he's saving fuel.
Could be. He spent about maybe 15 to 20 laps of this run out in front before losing the lead to Ryan Sizemore. And there you see Jeremy Richmond and Brock Silvati, a couple of teammates coming off pit lane. So they've obviously just completed a green flag pit stop, which means we could be seeing a lot of hands waving out the window down the back straightaway here, getting ready to come to pit lane this time.
Again, we saw Gene Cato kind of contact that outside wall, but it looks like that damage hasn't really affected him that much.
I want to mention that Brock Silvati was involved in the lap 2 incident. He came to pit road, did not use his faster pair. He did use the faster pair here under this green flag pit stop, and wow, whoa it down there, Jones.
Christopher Papa. Oh, someone spun out.
Anderson.
Oh, none of Richmond. Or Robinson hit him.
Bobby Anderson hit the commitment cone there. I don't know if that would warrant a penalty, if he would be classified as missing the commitment line or not.
That should be unsafe pit entry. So that would be a 40-second hold.
Everybody was on pit lane there with the exception of 4 drivers. David Modespa, Gene Cato, J.R. Miller, and Jordan Stencil all stayed out. We're expecting them to hit pit lane this time by.
You know, as a result of that contact with Robinson and kind of the spun car on pit road, there's no damage to the front of that car, surprisingly.
Robinson dodging a bullet there, so to speak, as J.R. Miller could have stayed out an extra lap in the 78. Modespa is in. It's like Jordan Stencil in the 64 also staying out. That's a valuable bonus point there for J.R. Miller with a lap led. But he and Jordan Stencil might find themselves at a disadvantage of maybe not being in a big enough pack, maybe not even the lead pack, once they complete their pit stop. The one thing they do have for their benefit is when they come down pit road, that's going to be like a ghost town. Nobody's going to be down there. They're going to have it all to themselves.
That's a blessing and a curse. I mean, I don't know if you're able to come down there. There's only 2 cars. I mean, you saw how much these giant packs really helped this race.
Modespa and Gene Cato, they pitted last time around. Here come the other 2 playoff contenders, the 78 and the 64 to pit lane. If you're looking at who the race lead could cycle around to, looks like it would be the pole sitter DJ Daniel, unofficially in 4th, now to 3rd place, as he just went around David Modespa and Gene Cato. Lap car of Ryan Phillips separates him from who would more than likely cycle to 2nd, the 8 of Ryan Sizemore.
What an interesting combo.
It really is.
Well, nice to see that the 43 is back up to speed. That factor did end up doing the trick, but I think he probably should have done that after the first caution.
I agree. Definitely waited a little too long. Phillips right now 3 laps down, and as we are less than 25 laps away and now have a total of 6 drivers off the lead lap.
Stencil spin off of pit road.
And it's going to be down out of the way, so no caution will fly, but that's a costly error for the 64, who came into this race 7 points behind the 4th in the standings cut line, and prior to that was looking possibly at a top 10 run here today.
Let me just take a look here. Actually, he got damage coming on the pit road by hitting the back of, looks like the 78. When he was coming in, he ended up giving a little bump out on the pit road, ended up denting in the front end there. And didn't take tires, only took gas on his way out. It just got a little bit over grandiose. I mean, you gotta remember, there's about 3 little bumps at the exit of pit road here at Talladega. I think he just hit those, kind of got a little bit overzealous on the throttle, just spun it around.
Well, a name that we mentioned early on in this race, but not for the right reasons, getting involved in that early caution, Christopher Lawrence, didn't really talk about him the rest of the race until now. Our Daytona winner from the regular season finale has now worked his way up into the 6th position. And it's kind of ironic because when I looked back, only 2 drivers in the 2 Daytona races we've run finished up inside the top 5, and it was our 2 Daytona winners, Robinson and Lawrence.
And realistically, it looks like this is going to end up being about a 10-car pack whenever Gene Cato and it looks like all the way up to Chris Hubka end up catching this pack. I imagine you're going to try the same trick they did earlier and try to go to the outside lane.
Looks like Gene Cato, despite we saw him get up into the outside wall during our commercial break, looks like he did not get that damage repaired. He's still up to speed and still good. He had already used his only faster pair earlier on in this race. So you're actually noticing now a lot of those drivers that had used the faster pairs making the charge up here to the front, 7 of them inside of the top 12.
They deem it's go time, where honestly, I think these drivers can make it to the end of the race and what they got. So it's more or less kind of putting yourself in the best position. DJ Daniel has no friends up here, I'm going to tell you at the moment. Realistically, I think trying to get rid of him and get him out of the way is the best plan here at the moment for some of these guys. Looks like Sizemore's taking a little bit more of a proactive approach about it.
And right down to the right rear quarter panel has David Modespa and Patrick McQuaid on the top side to help him, trying to push that 8 machine to the front. Real quickly, Matt, you talked about the 99 of Matthew Robinson not having damage. Was that pre or post pit stop? Because it's showing that on my end, he did use a fast repair.
That was, at least I thought it was pre-pit stop, but maybe he did have damage and ended up taking the fast repair, but that easily helped him dodge a bullet.
It did, however, put him back in 12th place, and he's in the second pack, which right now is running 4 seconds behind the lead group, currently being led by Brock Silvati. Well, actually, it's being led by the lap machine of Jeremy Richmond. And you talked about that DJ Daniel is a man on an island all by himself. That's because all 3 of his teammates are right there, the 98, 97, and 99, back in pack number 2.
I mean, just look at how much DJ Daniel's really trying to fight that inside lane. I don't blame him, but I mean, he knows he doesn't have any friends up here, and if he really loses that lead, it's going to be really hard to fight his way back up there. Almost 3 wide. Oh, he gets hurt!
David Modespa up and over. Patrick McQuaid in the 73 involved as well. Look out oncoming traffic. The self-cleaning track of Talladega. Have those littered machines go from top to bottom, but looks like they all migrated down to the apron before that second pack came into view. This caution comes out with less than 20 laps to go.
I mean, we knew it was coming. Realistically, it looked like Modespa got a little bit too over-aggressive on Sizemore, knocked Sizemore up the track, tried to take that inside lane, and really Sizemore came back down to block that inside lane. Modespa turned right back up, trying to get at least a little bit of an advantage, get back to that top lane, have McQuaid push him, and unfortunately, when he turned back up, McQuaid was already there, and just hooked him out on round.
You talked about the fact that drivers early on in this race, not all that big on pushing the car in front of them, but we saw right there was a lot of pushing that was going on between the 1 and the 8.
I mean, that's a textbook reason of why so many of these guys don't push the cars, because I mean, the bumpers don't line up perfectly in these cars, and it's a thing of, I mean, when you hit someone right in the back, that unsettles the car and almost lifts the rear wheels off the ground, where it's just almost impossible to drive.
I mean, even if the bumpers did line up, I mean, these cars, they're kind of dancing down these straightaways. They're not holding a completely straight line, so I would think it'd be very difficult to try and make sure you're going to hit the car in front of you square.
I mean, I'm also looking at a little bit more fallout from this wreck, where Hubka was heavily involved in this incident, ended up hitting McQuaid, got some more contact from Modespa. He's already used his fast repair. I think that's almost his race right there, where I don't know how much more speed that car has. Looking up a little bit further, it also looks like James C. Jones was also involved, but he still has a fast repair laying around.
You're right on board here with Hubka, who was definitely right in the middle of all of this. There's the contact up ahead there between Modespa and Ryan Sizemore, and then Sizemore up into McQuaid, and got some pretty good damage, especially to the right side of that 5 machine of Hubka. And that's a tough break there, because Chris had done a great job after the early contact back on lap 2 of working his way slowly up into the top 10 and pretty much staying up there for most of this race. I mean, he was one of those drivers that had to use an early fast repair that kind of didn't really run towards the back, scared of tearing up his equipment. He went for it, and it was working out for him.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the front of that car, but realistically, my concern is not the aero damage. I just saw how hard he hit McQuaid, and especially with the front end, I think the engine's down on power. I don't think really aerodynamics is going to be the issue here.
Upka, playoff contender, 8 points back behind the final 4 position coming into this race, and we had, I believe, 10 drivers stay out. Everybody else coming down pit road. I'm seeing some varying strategies, some topping off the fuel tank, some taking on 2 tires, a majority taking on the 4 tires there. Is it just a case of, well, we're not up inside the top 10. We're not going to lose a whole lot in track position because everybody else is coming down behind us, so why not see if we can get a little bit of extra confidence underneath us?
Absolutely. It makes sense where, I mean, listen, there is still the chance for multiple cautions to happen here. And again, I'm still kind of in that belief where I don't think it's our last caution. But we do have green-white checkers on hand to use them if we need them. But might as well have enough fuel, just make sure you last.
With that caution coming out, Jeremy Richmond is going to get the free pass. It will give us 22 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green flag racing. David Modespaw still sits on pit road. Actually, I believe he is just now leaving his pit stall. He lost a lap after he had to teleport to pit lane, and he used his faster pair there. Also a lap down, actually 2 laps down, Bud Barnes, 3 laps down, Ryan Phillips, James Cato, 5 laps down, and Angel Santiago is 6 laps down. Take a look here at our caution recap. We're currently working our fourth caution of the evening, but surprisingly, especially with the fact we had that big wreck back on lap 2, we had an airborne driver just moments ago. Of the 30 drivers that took the green flag to start this race, 27 of them are still running.
Absolutely. No, I'm kind of seeing some flashes of the future here, and I think it's going to be kind of a survival of the fittest to the line on the last lap. I mean, just looking at how intense the racing has been all the way up to this point, I mean, this is going to be definitely an interesting finish.
You know who was very happy to see that caution come out? DJ Daniel. Because with him staying out, Brock Silvati and Matthew Robinson stayed out as well. They're going to line up 6th and 7th, which means that Daniel will see some teammates in his rearview mirror in the next couple of laps, something that he did not see just before that caution came out.
Now, the big question is, where do you decide to go? Right now, it looks like Sizemore will probably take the inside line, which will put DJ Daniel on the outside lane. But the big question is, right now, they're really a 3-car team. Can you really gain more people to make a run on that outside lane, or are you really going to try and fight to get in?
And Sizemore's got some choices to make here too, and maybe finding a new alliance, because let's remember when he took the race lead away from DJ Daniel on the top side, it was David Modespaw who pushed him there. Now Modespaw's off the lead lap and had to use a faster pair, so he's going to have to create a new alliance here as he's kind of lost his wingman from the last run.
Realistically, it's whoever you can find, at least in these last few laps, who, I mean, here's the thing, if you can, all these drivers have the ability to private chat one another, to even create a private room in iRacing where they can end up, having voice access to each other. So, I mean, that's really where you're kind of trying to phone anyone that you know, saying, hey, I mean, we haven't talked that much, but are you willing to help me here? I need help.
That made a late pit stop was Bobby Anderson in the 18. We saw him have a little bit of contact exchanged during that last run, so it looks like they spent a little bit of extra time fixing up that car, a little bit of extra time on pit road as well for Zachary Woods in the 60, who had worked his way up inside of the top 10 just prior to that caution coming out. So both those drivers going to have to make some forward progress once again to get back to where they were just before our 4th caution flew. Still going to be a long ways to go in this one. 15 laps to go, and this is a big super speedway, so plenty can still happen from now till the checkered flag, as Ryan Sizemore and DJ Daniel going to lead them back down to the green flag. Kyle Gartner, Gene Cato, and Christopher Lawrence are your top 5 as we're back racing at Talladega, 15-lap shootout.
And this is where it starts ramping up here a little bit. And I'm looking back in the pack, it looks like some guys didn't really get a very good start. I'm looking at, looks like the 83 of Bud Barnes making the outside run. He's still a few laps down, but just showing the run that you could really get on the outside lane.
Saw right there that the top 2 on the outside line of Daniel and Cato, they got going, but a huge gap back to the 3rd car of Brock Silvati. Don't know if that's going to hurt that outside line or not, as they're much more formed on that inside line there with Sizemore, Gartner, and Lawrence.
Not sure about that. I'm seeing help on the way in the form that looks like Stencil, Santoyo, and Papa.
I don't know if that was a case of the 8 trying to stop the momentum of the 96, or he just maybe got a little loose there and drifted up half a groove. Look at Cato with a push there in the 2 to the 96.
I think both of them are really just trying to defend everything they have.
Almost looking 3 wide into turn 1 is Gene Cato. The inside line all of a sudden got a huge push of momentum there through 1 and 2. Sizemore, Gartner, Lawrence clear 1, 2, 3.
DJ Daniel almost got turned by Cato.
That's going to hurt the outside line momentum even more. Boy, look at that 96 dancing down the back straightaway. Look at this. Kyle Gartner jumps to the top. Christopher Lawrence going to go up there with him. Teammates working together.
Ooh. And that's almost the same thing we saw there. Just so many of these cars, exactly when you start pushing on their bumper. they are just not lined up, and most of these front ends just don't line up with the back ends, and that just results in them just pushing them around so much.
Look at the third car on the inside line. Playoff contender Corey Saucier, who thought that he had won last week at Iowa. We're going to be rerunning Iowa, so he's trying to get some victory lane redemption from a week ago. He's now up P3. Patrick McQuaid, who was involved in that incident that brought out the last caution, fast repair, and he's back up to 4th.
Clock's ticking. You've got 13 laps left, and this is really, you need to start making your your moves for the end of the race, putting yourself in that right position.
But you're watching him even back towards the tail end of this lead pack, slicing and dicing back and forth, throwing some blocks on each other as the side-by-side battle will be for 5th place. Kyle Gartner on the top, Jim Santoyo on the bottom, and all of a sudden Gartner has lost all of his drafting friends. He's going to lose a spot to Lawrence, loses a spot to Shane Ledoux. James Jones moves on by Gartner, quickly making an exit outside of the top 10.
Gartner tried to cut down in front of DJ Daniel, but just did not work. He's got the help from Gene Cato now, but it looks like he tried to hop in front of Papa, wasn't able to. Now really kind of stacking up that second lane.
Saw there the 98 of Jeremy Richmond. Now, I thought that Richmond was going to be the free pass car. Apparently, that is not the case. He is still marked 1 lap down in the 21st position. So 20 drivers on the lead lap here, closing in on 10 laps to go. Up at the front, Ryan Sizemore leads Matthew Robinson. Corey Saucier there in the 3rd position. Patrick McQuaid and James Santoyo in 4th and 5th. And I believe, I'll have to double check on this, I think the 8 and the 24 are teammates.
Ooh, my only advice to Shane Ledoux is run away fast. But I mean, look at how much these, from 11th back, they're battling each other. We're going to lose the pack here.
And correction, they are not teammates. Corey Saucier out of CRC and Ryan Sizemore out of Sizemore Motorsports. So right now, you've got no alliances, at least up inside of the top 3.
I mean, just look at this second pack. They're almost self-sabotaging themselves. Just almost took themselves out of it.
And that is going to break up the field quite a bit there. I believe that Shane Ledoux in 10th place is going to be the last car in the lead pack. And oh goodness, look at the second group. Double wide, about 5 rows deep, and they are trying to line up the bumpers, but that does not look like it's an easy task for any of them.
I mean, just look at that, and you can tell that's Corvo and Cato just kind of getting antsy and saying, hey, listen, guys, we got to go. I mean, look at how much we're losing that pack up there.
Look at Jeffrey Vickery on that inside line. He's trying to push the 13 of Papa, but he moves left, moves right, moves left, moves right, cannot center his front bumper with the back bumper of the 13.
And we're 3x3, and you got to look at this here where a lot of these guys just want to get by. Looks like Cato got a little bit of contact. It looks with the 83 of Bud Barnes. Oliver, everyone keeps it straight.
And a lot of these guys in this group have already used a fast repair as well. Cato, Chris Papa, Bobby Anderson. So they can ill afford to be bringing out the 5th caution because that could be their race over. Boy, that car is continuing to move it around there of 21 of Jeffrey Vickery. As Kyle Gartner was trying to help push him on the outside line, nothing doing. Now that's jumping up on the outside line there. I think that's the 83 of Barnes, the lap machine.
I'm going to tell you, everyone from about 11th on back is hoping for another caution. Everyone from top 10 up is hoping, hey, just keep it green. Really, we've settled this battle all between themselves.
Yeah, they've got the strategy down here of remaining single file, continuing to pull away from group number 2. I even think that at this point, if that second group got themselves into single file formation, they would not be able to close up the gap, which is now increased to over 2.5 seconds. That's from 10th back to 11th, folks. If we're looking at the interval from that second pack to the race leader, we're talking 4 seconds.
Easily. I mean, I'm going to tell you, regardless of whether they're all getting the straight line, they would not be able to catch that front pack.
Look up here at the front. A lot of playoff contender green banners. A few that are not battling for the championship, though. Your race leader, Ryan Sizemore. 4th place, Patrick McQuaid. And 10th place, Shane Ledoux. But for these playoff drivers, when is it go time? When do you start thinking about getting around this 8 machine? Do you have to wait until the last lap, or do you generate a run sooner than that?
Well, that's a difference in opinion. I mean, who you've got with you. I mean, who's your friends here? Who's going to help you out? Honestly, I'm liking Shane Ledoux here at the moment because he's kind of hanging back off his top 9 where, I mean, listen, if something big happens and it takes out all the contenders, I mean, you want to be as far back as possible to avoid this.
Right now, the closest teammate that I see be the 99 of Matthew Robinson running in second, and his teammate back in 7th place, Brock Silvati. Everybody else is going to have to kind of form their own alliances with maybe a fellow manufacturer, maybe just a fellow friend, but not necessarily a teammate here, as Patrick McQuaid jumped up to the outside line. James Santoyo going to leave him out to dry there, moving into the 4th position. Looks like McQuaid will be able to slot into 5th place. Nope, he's going to get taken 3 wide with Silvati on the top.
Oh, it looks like there's a little bit of miscommunication between Santoyo. Santoyo almost got turned into the inside. Wreck in the back. Someone's spinning. It looks like Vickery, and there's someone else further up. It's Jordan Stencil again.
Playoff contender Jordan Stencil, who was saved by that last caution after he spun coming off of pit lane during the green flag pit stops. And Jeffrey Vickery, who led the first couple of laps here tonight.
So it looks like maybe the 21 of Vickery just got a bit tight in the corner, got sent up the track a little bit, tried to jump out to maybe avoid running into the back of the 80 or running in the back of the 83. Ford 9 just didn't check up or just didn't have the reaction time to check up, drove right in the back of him. Vickery tagged the 64 of Stencil, and Stencil tried to save it and got a little bit more assistance from Cato, and after Cato hit him, that was pretty much all she wrote.
Boy, look at all those drivers utilizing that very wide apron there on the back straightaway. Saw Santoyo go down there to try and avoid. Saw a couple of other drivers. Ryan Phillips went down there to try and avoid. Now, I think that there might have been another driver that got a slight bit of contact out of all of this, and I think that could very well have been, I think it was the 49 of Gartner. There was someone I saw got a slight piece of the incident. We'll see if we can find out here from another camera view. Actually, I think it's the 57 of Corbeau. Might get a slight piece of this, maybe, with the left front. Wow. That 64 of Stencil almost hit the inside wall for a second time tonight, but he was able to get on the brakes, spin the tires, get into the throttle quickly enough to make sure that that thing spun around before making contact. He made a little contact maybe with the left rear quarter panel, but if he had kept that thing in the throttle, he would have nosed that straight into the inside safer barrier. So this caution comes out, and it is going to leave us with a total of more than likely 3 laps to go. It may be a green-white checkered here in the schedule running distance. It will all depend on when the lights go out atop the pace car. If it goes out this time, we'll have a 3-lap shootout. If it goes out the following lap, it would be a 2-lap shootout for these drivers. And you saw going around to get his lap back this time, officially, Jeremy Richmond is the free pass machine. So there will be 21 cars on the lead lap when we go back green flag racing. And just a touch here quickly too, Matt, you talked about Chris Hubka back under the last caution getting that contact. He's been on pit road for the last 12 laps getting repairs done. So tough break there for a playoff contender. It looked like he was going to have a good day and now could be heading into both Kentucky and Iowa, and what we're talking about, the possible must-win situation to combat what have been somewhat struggling runs in the first 2 playoff races at Chicagoland and here tonight at Talladega.
I mean, that definitely kind of hurts for Hubka, but have you seen that one of David Monospa? That thing has almost like no deck lid, no back end tailgate, no front end.
And that would be because he did not have a faster pair to use when that thing was a missile over in turn 1. So got the repairs done that were necessary, but yeah, you're right. That car looks like it's more appropriate maybe for a Honda Speedway or a Knoxville race rather than a super speedway race.
But I mean, just imagine how vital this pretty much free pass is to Jeremy Richmond, where, I mean, it takes him from having no shot at the win, where, I mean, here's the thing, by circumstances, or hey, I mean, really, if he has an amazing run or something happens on this restart, he is in prime position to really take advantage of this.
And it's huge too, because Richmond did not have the best of runs at Chicagoland. He was 14th seed of the 16 playoff contenders coming into the night, 15 points back. And if the race had finished the way it was, he would have finished outside of the top 20 and could very well have been in the same situation that we were just describing moments ago for Chris Hupka. Jeremy Richmond, maybe one of the more consistent drivers during the regular season that did not find victory lane. And so what's been a struggling start to the playoffs for him, he might be able to make a little bit of good out of it after running the last 35 laps or so off the lead lap with his troubles off of turn 2 that brought out our third yellow flag of the day.
That just kind of epitomizes the never stop fighting mentality. I mean, listen, he has kind of clawed his way back up there from that incident. He still has a shot.
Well, our two former Super Speedway winners are up inside of the top 10. Robinson in second and Christopher Lawrence in 7th place. Ryan Sizemore will lead them back to green. Corey Saucier and Brock Silvati in 3rd and 4th. James Santoyo and James Jones, they're in row 3. DJ Daniel alongside of Christopher Lawrence for 8th place. Shane Ledoux and Patrick McQuaid going to be your top 10. For the rest of your playoff contenders that are on the lead lap, Kyle Gartner will restart 13th, J.R. Miller 15th, Zachary Woods in 16th, Noah Owens 18th, Jordan Stencil, who was involved in that last yellow, still on the lead lap. He's going to restart 19th, and Jeremy Richmond, who got the lucky dog, he will restart in 21st. Your other playoff contenders that are still scored in this race, Ryan Phillips, 3 laps down in 23rd. Angel Santiago, 6 laps down in 25th. And Chris Hupka, who we just mentioned, sits on pit road. Damage repair continuing on his number 5. Right now he is scored in the 27th position. That is more than likely where he will finish out this race, as it's going to be a 3-lap shootout to decide it here at Talladega Superspeedway.
Just think of how chaotic this is going to end up being where, I mean, listen, your entire race has come up to this point, keeping the car clean, kind of leading laps, staying out of trouble. I mean, it's all kind of come down to 3 laps for you to make your case.
Now, we've seen some blocks for the race lead here so far in this race. From this point on, we're going to see a lot of blocking for this race lead, potentially this race win. Ryan Sizemore has Corey Saucier behind him for this restart. JKR Motorsports lined up nose to tail with Robinson and Silvati on the outside of rows 1 and 2. Which line will prevail going into turn 1? Green flag is out. Sizemore up through the gears. Both lines appear to get going. Question now is that 2nd and 3rd row. Who lines up the quickest?
They're still pretty dead even here.
Edge ahead a little bit there for Sizemore through the center of 1 and 2. Now that outside line, big push there as James Jones is going to help that outside line get the momentum down the back straightaway.
I'm going to tell you, everyone in that outside lane, no one looks settled here at the moment. It's kind of just pick your friends where you got them and go.
Matthew Robinson says, thank you very much, teammate. Now he drops down to the inside line to block Ryan Sizemore. Silvati, Jones, and Daniel stuck on the top side. Anderson out of shape. And he's
Anderson.
up into the air.
He's in the fence. Oh, he's actually in the fence.
He's on the wall in the fence. Caution's going to fly. And Matthew Robinson is the race leader at the time of this yellow flag.
I kind of felt that was going to happen with the 91 cutting down so quickly. I was kind of worried that seeing the 91 try to kind of preserve his position, he was actually going to end up brake checking Zach Williams, but that wasn't the case. He cut down way too early and ended up hitting the back of Bobby Anderson and just turned him right around.
Into overtime we go. Here is the reason. There's the contact between Shane Ledoux and Bobby Anderson, and Anderson had already used a faster pair, so that is his day done, as he becomes the 2nd driver to have all 4 tires leave the racing surface here this evening. And that car actually came to rest, as you mentioned, inside of the catch fence and on top of the safer barrier over in turn 4.
Is a interesting onboard, almost a disorienting onboard, if I can say so.
We're going to use it too. Hopefully the camera survived. Just going into turn 3. And you can see right there, that right there was the contact of Ledoux getting into the right rear quarter panel, and from that point on, the 18 was just kind of out of shape. While it looks like just a minor wiggle from the third-party standpoint, that actually translates into 5-10 miles per hour lost. And when you've got everybody else behind you at full song, you're just going to get run over.
Thing where, I mean, listen, when things go wrong, they go wrong in a hurry, and you have about a 2-second window to catch the car, and it's sometimes just not possible. And like I said, Bobby Anderson, at least in my mind, he did nothing wrong here. I mean, realistically, he was just kind of the victim of, listen, laps are winding down. I got to go.
Well, unfortunately for Bobby Anderson, that is going to finish him behind the wall. More than likely, he will finish somewhere around the 24th position. He lost a position just moments ago to Bud Barnes, who was 2 laps down. Ryan Phillips will pick up a spot here in the next upcoming lap. He may lose a spot to James Cato, depending on when we eventually do go back green flag racing. There you see Barnes in the 83. He'll get the lucky dog. He'll get one of his 2 laps back. He'll now be 1 lap down to the race leader, Matthew Robinson. And it looks like Shane Ledoux, he did get some pretty good damage out of that. He is down pit road in the 91, getting some repairs done to his machine. So we get set for another restart. This time it's going to be a 2-lap shootout. But Matthew Robinson is now the control car being pushed there by his teammate Brock Silvati. Ryan Sizemore is actually going to be on the top side here for this restart now, and he looks like he will have Silvati as his pusher there. I have to wonder, with there being a teammate leading this race, how anxious is Silvati going to be to help push that 8 machine out in front of the 99?
I don't know. You're saying it's kind of one of those, one for all for one kind of situations where, listen, as much as you kind of help the guy in front of you win the race, you want to win the race too. Everyone wants to win this race.
Of course, Robinson has 3 wins on the season. Silvati has none. So if it comes down between those 2 teammates of who wants it more, then you might be looking at that 97 who's looking for his first win in his BackFire sim racing career. Lights should be going out atop the pace car momentarily. It might be this lap, it might be the next, but we're just going to quickly step aside for a commercial break. Then we'll be back here to bring you the finish of the Splash and Go Graphics 250 at Talladega Superspeedway as you're watching the BackFire Sim Racing on the Flatout Racing Network.
Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCars. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and Team. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you could only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engines.
Overtime green-white checkered attempt number 1 about to get underway here at Talladega Superspeedway with Matthew Robinson, who started out the season with a Superspeedway win at Daytona, looking to win the only Superspeedway race in the playoffs here at Talladega. He'll lead Ryan Sizemore, Corey Saucier, Brock Silvati, and James Santoyo back to the green flag. This is the first of 2 attempts these drivers have for a green-white checkered finish. They have to get at least back around to the white flag for the race to be declared official on both cases. But if we end up making it to the second green-white checkered attempt, a caution comes out, the race will end under yellow regardless of which lap it comes out on. Leader at the time would be declared the winner when he comes around to receive the checkered flag. So we'll see if they can get around here for just the 1 attempt. They got to make it back to the white flag. The question is just how many aggressive moves are going to be made by the time we get back around to it.
You just got to be careful. I mean, this is almost a high-speed game of chess, but again, one wrong move, and next thing you know, you end up almost the same as Bobby Anderson in the fence.
A lot of green playoff banners up here towards the front as whoa!
Ooh.
10 of Jones swapping lanes there
I think
before
that
the
may be a
start-finish
penalty.
line. I think it would be too. That was
Yeah,
way
that'd be
before the start-finish line. Jones dropping to the bottom. We'll follow up on that as the outside line, Ryan Sizemore, he's not been afraid to get down on somebody's right rear quarter panel, and he did it that time to Robinson, trying to get the run off of 2 down the back straightaway, and so Vadi looks like he's willing to push him.
That's like, oh! Sizemore uses Robinson as almost a guardrail. He ended up saving it.
What a
4 wide
save.
bear back in the pack.
That was Robinson and Santoyo that had to go 4 wide. Oh, now Lawrence is bouncing off of Papa. The caution is out. It's Jordan Stencil and Zachary Woods back in 3 and 4.
Oh, that's a shame for Zachary Woods. He was running so well, but it almost looks like when everyone was kind of doing that kind of ping pong match, and at least in 3, looks like Woods may have gotten to the back of Stencil, at least the left rear just a little bit, and ended up just stacking him up behind.
Stencil has already used a faster pair. Zachary Woods has not, and it looks like Woods has gotten the worst of the exchange there. A lot of front-end damage on his Toyota Camry, and we kind of were keeping an eye up there towards the front as well, because there was a lot of bouncing off of each other after that caution came out up around Lawrence, Christopher Papa, and others. Go back and see what happened here to Zachary Woods in the 60, as well as Jordan Stencil, a couple of our playoff contenders. Man, this, again, we saw the stack up at the front, the near 4 wide, and I think that led to this quite a bit. Oh yeah, Woods just kind of pushing up the track a little bit there. It's the left rear quarter panel of Stencil, and another playoff contender was actually involved there. Ooh, look at that. A little off-road driving there that Travis Pastrana would be proud of. Zachary Woods, but another driver that was actually involved in that wreck. Don't know if he saw it, but the 78 of J.R. Miller got quite a bit of damage on the front end of his machine. And another playoff contender that was involved was the 88 of Noah Owens. We're going to take an onboard here with the 78 of J.R. Miller, who has kept his nose relatively clean up to this point. There's the contact made. There's Noah Owens in the 88 off on the right side of the screen. So that was 4 playoff contenders right there, all involved in a late race caution.
I just got word, it looks like from league officials, it looks like the 10 of James Jones will be penalized for, it looks like, lane change prior to the restart, or at least prior to the start-finish line. I believe it's going to be a end-of-line penalty.
Jones right now being scored in 5th place, and yeah, that was kind of a plain as day situation there of him swapping lanes before the start-finish line. So obviously there for James Jones. We talked about the situation for him coming into this race, 16th of the 16 playoff contenders, trying to get himself back up there into contention, and now it just basically comes down to how many spots is he going to be able to pick up and what's going to be possibly the final 2 laps of the race. We may not even get all 2 of them done under green flag conditions, since this will be the second green-white checkered attempt. This is going to drop him all the way back to the 20th position. This also, though, does give an opportunity for Bud Barnes to pick up some spots, because with this caution coming out, he now is going to get the free pass for the second straight caution period, and he will be back on the same lap as the leader. So 21 drivers will be on the lead lap when we go back green.
Definitely this is kind of setting this up here for, this could be an interesting restart, because again, they have 2 attempts. 2 attempts. It's the final attempt for them to get this right. I don't know if I'll make it back to the white flag. I don't know.
I mean, you would think that for some of these drivers now, there is a sense of urgency with not knowing when the caution flies. When the caution flies, field's going to be frozen. Doesn't matter if it's going to be coming back to the white or if they've already taken the white flag. And so, in the case of some of these guys back in the second, third, fourth rows, they're basically boxed in. They're going to have to make something happen, make sure that they're going to at least be alongside of whoever the race leader is at the time, or if a caution comes out, them timing it just right, maybe even a splitter ahead, giving them this race win. So I think you're definitely going to see a little bit more aggressiveness in the case of impatience and urgency for drivers that are not starting up here on this front row.
Well, here's the thing. You obviously want to time your move, but you can't mistime it where, hey, you complete your move by the back straightaway and, well, we completed by the back straightaway, but we still got 2 corners left. But you don't want to wait too long, but you already get on the front straightaway and you're nowhere within range.
Now, on the previous restart, Matthew Robinson had gotten around Ryan Sizemore on the outside line of the front row and led us back to green. On this restart, Ryan Sizemore got around Matthew Robinson on the top side, and he is the leader, bringing us back to this green flag. Now, Sizemore is going to be on the inside line, so based on what we've seen on the past 2 restarts, the advantage you would have to think would be going to Robinson, especially off of turn 2. What can Ryan Sizemore do to counter the 99 getting that run?
I mean, I don't know if he can do any more than what he's already done. I mean, he has tried just about everything to keep him behind. Realistically, I think he really just needs to stick to his guns. He needs to stay on that inside line and just really fight for it. He needs to be in contact, at least with Brock Salvati behind him, or even trying to see if he can maybe try to get Lawrence on his side on the inside. Just seeing if he has someone who's willing to stay behind him and help him fight, at least a little bit.
Well, Ryan Sizemore, when they raced the season opener at Daytona, did not fare well. Finished 37th in that race. Did a lot better, moving from 22nd up to 3rd in the regular season finale at Daytona International Speedway. Started this race from the 20th position and in for maybe the restart of his season as he's looking for his first win on the year and trying to hold off 3-time winner and former Super Speedway race winner this year, Matthew Robinson in the 99. Here we go. Final green-white checkered. The next flag ends the race here today at Talladega.
These guys are just trying to get to the white flag, and as soon as they get to the white flag, I mean, really, you can go at it as hard as you want as long as you make it back to the finish.
Brock Salvati's been one of the better pushers on these last couple of restarts. He's on the inside line, 3rd place. Green flag out. Salvati taking a peek there on Sizemore, gives him a shove heading for turn 1, but then backs off a little bit. I think he wants to make the move for himself. No, he lets his teammate in.
And that really kind of puts Saucier up there, and he's kind of in no man's land. He's hoping for a little bit of help from Papa, and it looks like Santoyo up there on top.
If Robinson makes a move, Salvati will probably go with him. And look who's 4th in line. Christopher Lawrence in the 9 machine. Now he's going to stay on the bottom with Sizemore as Robinson looks for the top position. Still green as we head for turn 3.
Looks like everyone back there, it looks like Papa and Santoyo really kind of left themselves out to dry. They both hopped in 2 different lanes, 3 wide back there.
Advantage right now to the 8 through turn 4 by about a splitter. Salvati's still in the...
no! Richmond got turned.
Caution comes out. Who was ahead? I think it was Robinson. Barely ahead.
I think it was Robinson.
I think Robinson, maybe by a splitter, was ahead of Ryan Sizemore. Sizemore thinks he was ahead. We'll have to wait for official scoring. A tough break there for Jeremy Richmond in the 98, who had gotten himself back onto the lead lap, and it's hooked around there, entering into the tri-oval.
I just look back at the replay. It definitely looks like Richmond was ahead. Or sorry, Robinson was ahead.
Here's the incident that brings out the caution, as looks like Richmond tried to clear himself up in front of Corey Saucier, and Saucier was there. Oh, wow, look at these guys. These guys all realizing that the caution's out, and they got to pick up all the spots they possibly can. James Cato came flying in the 3. Looks like Santoyo in the 79 got a piece of it as well. And we're going to see if we can pinpoint the exact moment that the caution came out here to see who indeed was ahead at the time of the yellow. So there would be where the 98 spun around, and if we take a look at this camera shot here, it's pretty clear and obvious that the 99 was ahead, maybe by almost a full wheel. I think that his entire left front Goodyear would have been ahead of the front splitter of Ryan Sizemore.
I mean, it hasn't been a walk in the park for Robinson or Sizemore. I mean, Sizemore came all the way from 20th, ended up, I mean, here's the thing, you end up finishing P2 as long as he stays under power. And Robinson, hey, he's up here almost all race, but hey, he had kind of an up and down race. Had to use a fast repair, get back on, almost with a pit road scare.
And that was the checkered flag right there, waving over the hood of the 99 of Matthew Robinson. Win number 4 on the season, first in the playoffs, and second win this year at the Super Speedway. And it's also his third top 5 in the Super Speedway races. So, the good news is he got a win. The bad news is there's no more Super Speedway races for the rest of the season.
But again, doesn't that take so much of a burden off of him going into this next week where, listen, you don't have to go out and absolutely dominate Iowa. Not saying he's not going to try, but again, this makes his route so much easier where he's got at least a little bit of influx of points that he can kind of rely on here.
Absolutely. I mean, he came into this race the overall points leader, 6 points ahead of the cut line, and with a couple of drivers not exactly finishing up here towards the front, he will continue to grow an advantage over those drivers. It will be still somewhat close between himself, DJ Daniel, Corey Saucier, Christopher Lawrence, because they all finished up inside of the top 8, and they were the 4 drivers in the final 4 positions coming into tonight. Gonna make things interesting, though, outside of that cut line of the drivers fighting to make their way in the upcoming 2 races. But Matthew Robinson now breaks the tie as well between himself and teammate DJ Daniel. The both of them came into the playoffs with 3 wins apiece during the regular season, and Robinson now officially becomes the first 4-time winner on the season for the BackFire Sim Racing. Burnout time here at Talladega as Matthew Robinson wins the Splash and Go Graphics 250 at Talladega Super Speedway, and let's take a look at the full finishing results from today's event. And I think it's safe to say that, barring maybe a couple of drivers, if we looked at where everybody was running during the course of this race, we'd be looking at maybe a seismographic chart from an earthquake facility or something, because it was up and down for a lot of drivers here today. But a couple of drivers that kind of jump out to me that mounted some good comeback runs. Christopher Lawrence, who had to use a fast repair very early on in this race, bringing it home in 3rd, and Patrick McQuaid, who got involved in a late wreck with David Modespot. He was able to battle back for 4th.
I can't really, even though they didn't really get the finishes that they desire, I can't also go without including Shane Ledoux. And again, came back all from 26, drove up 20 positions. Same thing with Noah Owens. I mean, you saw almost an integral part of Noah Owens. He was up here battling almost all day, drove all the way back from 28th, drove 19 positions up, finished 9th.
A couple of guys that really needed good runs after some hard luck from Chicagoland, Owens and James Santoyo, bringing it home 9th and 10th, so they at least keep themselves in the running mathematically to snipe one of those final 4 positions in the upcoming 2 weeks at Kentucky and Iowa. We continue further on down the list, and this is where we start to get into those drivers, some of them that had great runs going and then found some issues late. Jeffrey Vickery was up at the front for a good portion of this race. He finishes 14th. You got Jeremy Richmond, who obviously was involved in bringing out that last caution. James Jones, a costly error there on the restart, swapping lanes before the start-finish line. He could have very well finished up inside of the top 5. Instead, he finishes in 18th, and this is a guy that came in dead last of the playoff contenders. Jordan Stencil as well is a driver that might have to look at Kentucky and Iowa to kind of mount a bit of a comeback, as he was 7 points outside of the final 4, but he finishes 19th here tonight. And these are the guys that right now I think we've just kind of got some red exclamation points above their names. They are not necessarily in desperation mode, but they need something good to happen quick. Brock Silvati, 21st. Angel Santiago, 24th. Ryan Phillips, 22nd. These guys, I don't think they necessarily need a win, but boy, they need at least back-to-back top 10s, if not top 5s, to keep themselves in the running to be in that championship battle at Homestead.
I think I almost prefer having Talladega as almost the midpoint here where, I mean, listen, the guys who know they can make it in and have 2 tracks coming up where they know they can end up really having the power in their own hands to control their destiny. I mean, this is a perfect 2-week chance. Prove your worth.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. At least you now know where you stand after Talladega rather than trying to figure out what your scenario is going into Talladega with a playoff spot on the line. So I agree with you. I think that definitely now allows these drivers to be able to step back, look where they're at, assess what they need to do in the upcoming 2 weeks. And as you mentioned, the fact that we already had that previous race at Iowa, a lot of drivers going to be able to figure out just what kind of tinkering they might have to do to make their setups a little bit better for the second go around when we get to Iowa Speedway. Let's see if we can now talk with our top 3 finishers here tonight. Looked like a lot of drivers dealing with different conditions and maybe not exactly having the best handling race cars that they would have liked, but able to wrestle those things to podium finishes. And let's start things off with a guy who had a win at a super speedway a few weeks ago in the regular season finale at Daytona, Christopher Lawrence. It's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey guys, I have a copy.
All right, so we know that you had good numbers at super speedways coming into tonight, but both of them were at Daytona. Top 5 in the season opener and, of course, a win in the regular season finale. What was the mindset coming here into Talladega? Did you have the confidence with the super speedway program you had earlier on in the season, or was there a little apprehension of how Talladega was going to play out, especially being a playoff race?
We were feeling pretty confident going into today, with our last 2 runs here in the BackFire League. So we were feeling pretty confident. We were running pretty much the same setup, same strategy as usual to start the race, and then we got caught up in that early wreck there, and put us back a little bit. But we knew we could get back up front. We knew we just had to stay patient. So we were pretty confident for tonight.
I'll put a little bit more emphasis on that whole kind of early wreck where, obviously I can imagine you weren't planning to use your fast repair on lap 4. How much did that change your strategy for the rest of the race, just kind of riding in the back?
I definitely was not, planning to use that early. Hopefully, I was hoping to get through at least half the race, but that actually completely changed our strategy. I'm not one to usually run in the back and stay patient. Normally I like to run up front and try to stay clean up front. So our strategy went from being aggressive and staying up front to kind of playing very, very passive and sitting in the back trying to avoid the wrecks, and it ended up working in our favor. We avoided a couple wrecks in the back there, and we were able to make our way back up front.
I want to go just one step further there because you came into this race in the critical 4th position in the points, the spot that everybody's kind of gunning for to make sure they're going to advance into that championship battle at Homestead. Did that play into any part of how you approached Talladega coming into this race, or did that have nothing to do with it?
Played a little part. Knowing we were in 4th place already, you gave us a little more confidence as well. So, it played into the confidence part coming into tonight. We knew we just had to have a solid run, to hold our place up there. So I'd say it played a good part in our strategy tonight.
Well, Chris, no doubt about it. You've got some good numbers when it comes to super speedway racing. 3rd top 5 here in the 3 super speedway races run so far this season. And obviously going to put a nice little gap, maybe move you up a little bit higher there in the final 4 stands heading into next week. So congratulations on great performance. Best of luck when you guys head to Kentucky next week. For now, we're going to turn the microphone over to you. Let's do some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate that. I want to give a shout out to my team first and foremost at Rebel Racing. Huge help for me tonight. Jeff Vickery, Shane Ledoux, Kyle Gertner, and Chris Hubka. They were a huge help tonight. Also want to give a shout out to the league sponsors that help us put on a good show. Butt Kicker, Blackgate Security Agency, Splash and Go Graphics, Sim Shots, JKR Motorsports. They've all been a huge help, so I want to give a shout out to them and thank you guys for putting on an awesome broadcast.
That's Christopher Lawrence, 3rd place here tonight in the 2nd playoff race of the season here at Talladega Super Speedway. Congrats, Chris, and best of luck here in the final 2 races before setting the final 4.
Thank you, guys. You have a good night.
All right, let's see if we can now talk with the highest finishing non-playoff contender. Led a good majority of the race here tonight, Ryan Sizemore. Hey, Ryan, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Man, I'll tell you what. Matt Rod talked about how with the new aero package here for these cars in iRacing, you guys are able to do a lot more in terms of pulling the car back to you, utilizing the draft, the side draft. We saw nobody use it more than you to be able to keep that car up at the front and stay at the front. That car looked like it was pretty fast. What little more did you need to edge ahead of that 99 just before that caution came out?
I needed the caution to not come out. I knew if we could make it around the next corner, I had to run. It seemed like every time on the bottom, the top line to get the start, and you get 2 corners into it, the bottom line pull away. I'd had good luck on the bottom line throughout the race. I just needed to stay green.
I gotta ask. I mean, throughout that entire almost like last section, you were racing very aggressive. I mean, was that kind of the strategy to see if kind of run Robinson at least a little bit high, maybe just kind of run him out in the dirt a little bit?
Yeah, I've kind of held back all season, and this is my first sim racing season I've not got a win so far. So I'm really, really wanting that win. I was wanting it bad. I knew that I was going to have to take every run I got and be super aggressive if I was going to have a chance. We run with some really good guys, so I knew I was going to have to give it everything I had. I thought maybe if I did kind of make it a little bit wider, that it would ruin his drafting help. And I saw the cars turning in my rear view, and when I looked over, I was ahead of him, but I guess when the yellow came out, I wasn't. It's the biggest heartbreak in my career.
Well, Ryan, we knew that you guys started this race with a faster pair to be able to fall back on if you ran into trouble. Well, trouble started rather early here tonight with a caution coming out on lap 2. You were back around the middle of that, starting this race from the 20th position. So how difficult was it to kind of remain patient when you had them 3 wide, several rows deep around you there at the beginning stages of this race?
I'll tell you that first caution, I'm not really sure how I made it through it. It was smoked out completely. You couldn't see anything. I just got lucky, got through it, and I finished the race with my faster pair not used. My car had a little bit of damage from some contact there towards the end, but yeah, man, the 3 wide stuff, that's part of the plate racing that we do. There's so many big runs you can get, and you either take them or you don't. Sometimes that leads to 3 wide racing. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it don't work out. Just gotta play your cards right. Like I said, we tried. Our thigh hugger Chevrolet was super fast, and it felt like it handled good out in the draft, but handled a lot better out in the lead where I would have liked to keep it.
Well, Ryan, your best finish of the season, obviously a heartbreak for you, not being able to close this thing out. One of the strongest cars of the day as soon as you got it up to the front, but still a great performance for you overall today. We're now going to give the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Appreciate it. Thank you all, first and foremost, for putting on a great broadcast each and every race. Got family and friends that really enjoy to watch it. But the league, Christopher Lawrence, Chris Hupka, putting on a great league. We've got some Class A drivers out here. I take pride in running alongside these guys week in and week out. To my sponsors, Thigh Huggers, the Shirt Garage, Blues Diecast, Black Sheep Firearms, Buffalo Springs Barbecue, Chevrolet. Just everyone, friends and family that backs me. I really wanted to get that for everyone, especially for myself. But we'll go at it next week.
That's Ryan Sizemore, second place here tonight at Talladega Superspeedway. Strong performance. Congrats, Ryan, and we look forward to see if you can carry this momentum, maybe pick up win number 1 next week in Kentucky.
All right, thanks, sir. We sure hope so.
All right, let's go down to victory lane and talk with 4-time winner Matthew Robinson. Hey, Matthew, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir. You hear me?
We got you. Man, a lot of firsts here tonight. First 4-time winner, first repeat winner at a super speedway, first playoff driver to win a playoff race. Now, we talked just moments ago with Ryan Sizemore. He said if you guys went green to the checkered flag all the way, he was going to be able to hold you off. Your thoughts?
Man, it would have been very close, man. It was 2 of us on the top line right there at the end. Brock gave me a great push right there at the end, and we had a plan to get lined up and drive around them. But when we did that, the line formed up on the bottom, and we sort of lost it. They sort of gained some speed, and but we edged them out. And I like to just thank Brock so much for that push right there at the end. You guess what was it? 1,000 ahead.
So I've got to end up asking. Lap 69, you're entering pit road. You end up running in the back of Zach. I believe it is the 90, or sorry, my apologies. Wow, I'm not really doing well at the end of this race. You end up running in the back of Zach Woods. And then as soon as you get past Zach Woods, you end up hitting the 18 of Bobby. At that point, was there any worry about the rest of your race?
Well, my great spotter, Patrick Moore, he was quick with his hands and the mouse, and he clicked it. Used a fast repair right when we were coming down pit road. So that really was a great save by him. I couldn't do it without him. He's been with me all season, and he's made some great calls, great pit strategies, and he's really helped me out with everything we've done. And really, I couldn't do it without him.
All right, so we talked about your previous statistics at the 2 Daytona races during the regular season. Of course, winning the season opener, and then when we went to Daytona the second time, you brought it home inside of the top 5 and 5th place. So your numbers at the super speedways have been exemplary. This is also going to give you a nice little cushion between yourself and that 4th in the standings cut line. So does this in some way change your strategy heading into the final 2 races of Kentucky and Iowa before preparing for Homestead?
Well, it definitely helped. It definitely makes me feel a lot better from what happened last week. We come out here and just show them what we got. And the restrictor plates, I really don't like them, but we always seem to do pretty decent. But no, it really doesn't change my strategy either. I'm trying to win the next 2 as well, and then the last one. So hopefully we get the next 3 in a row.
Well, you now sit alone atop most wins this season with 4, Matthew. Congratulations. We're now giving you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank JKR Motorsports with Jeremy Richmond, Brock, and DJ, and we all worked real good together. I'd like to thank my spotter once again, Patrick Moore, and I got to thank my buddy Justin Hazley. He's really helped me out this season with driving and coming in and practicing with me during the week, and he's with OER On Edge Racing, and he's the man. He's the real deal. And I like to thank Main Street Auto Service, Matt Rob Cuts, and all the sponsors, Junior Mobile Detailing. This is great.
Now, for the first time this season, a playoff driver wins a playoff race. It's Matthew Robinson winning here tonight at Talladega Superspeedway. Congratulations, Matthew. Best of luck to you next week at Kentucky.
Yes, sir. We'll see you later.
And we look ahead to the Bluegrass State and finish up our coverage here tonight from Talladega Superspeedway. It's kind of interesting talking there with Matthew Robinson. He doesn't like the Superspeedways, but the Superspeedways like him, finishing in the top 5 in all 3 Superspeedway races this season. He and Christopher Lawrence, the only 2 to have that in their repertoire for this season.
It's one of those weird things where, I mean, the moment you really start liking super speedway racing, it seems like all your luck just evades you in the moment when you finally say, well, I'm just tired. I don't think I can win any of these. You end up just coming through the field and end up taking one.
We knew that Talladega was going to be one of those wild card type races. Some drivers were going to do well. Some drivers weren't going to fare so well. Talladega kind of picks and chooses. And as you alluded to, Matt, this now sets the stage for these drivers to now have to figure out what they're going to have to do next week at Kentucky, and then, of course, as well at Iowa. So heading into that 1.5 mile track of Kentucky Speedway next week, let's say that you're a driver that's right now just above that cut line. Are you just looking for consistency, or are you looking kind of in the same cases with Matthew Robinson winning here tonight to make sure you have that big gap in case something goes wrong at Iowa?
Here's the thing. If you're right on that line of kind of making it and not making it, honestly, I'd say consistency is best. I mean, here's the thing. Just run the best you can, but don't take any unnecessary risk. Don't try a risky strategy hoping it'll play out, because here's the thing. That could really force you into a must-win situation. And I'm going to tell you, if it really comes down to must-win at Kentucky, I don't know about my chances there. I mean, here's the thing. We've seen how strong some of these guys are on about these 1.5 mile tracks, and especially a banked oval. I don't know about that. But if I'm way back in the field and I've got nothing to lose, I mean, here's the thing: throw the kitchen sink at it. You can't do any worse.
And I would almost think that that would apply as well to the drivers that struggled not only here tonight, but maybe as well last time out at Chicagoland as well. Don't go into Kentucky in a must-win situation. Kind of spread the consistency between the next two races.
Yeah, that's the thing where, I mean, here's the thing: Iowa and Kentucky are obviously different tracks, but they still have almost the same characteristics of them. So you can kind of use that Iowa practice that you had earlier last week to, of course, do better at Iowa, but also kind of carry it forward to Kentucky and use that consistency and just carry you forward.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers will do next week. It'll be the final mile-and-a-half track that these drivers will go to until we get to the season finale at Homestead Miami Speedway. So for all those out there that are really good at the mile-and-a-half tracks, it might be their opportunity to see if they can snipe away one of those final four positions in 3 weeks' time. Matthew Robinson may have secured himself one here tonight. He hasn't locked it up, but he's certainly given him a mathematical shot that he would hold one of those spots. And also the other drivers that came into tonight in those final four positions with solid outings at Talladega as well, DJ Daniel, Corey Saucier, and Christopher Lawrence. So they may still remain the top four heading into Kentucky next week. But it's been a wild one here tonight at Talladega. The timing of the caution brought it right down to a fender between Matthew Robinson and Ryan Sizemore, but Robinson picks up win number 4 on the season. Matt, it's been a good one here tonight at Talladega. We knew that it was going to be crazy. It did not disappoint, but it certainly now sets the stage for the remainder of these playoffs. Appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Always enjoy being invited.
Thanks to everyone that tuned in here tonight. We hope you guys enjoyed our coverage. Join us next Friday night as we will be continuing on the playoffs, playoff race number 3 from the Bluegrass State at the Kentucky Speedway. For Matthew Rodriguez, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Friday night as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.